Bible Answers with Dr. Al Garza.
All right, welcome back to another edition of Bible Answers Unfiltered and Black Belt Theology and Apologetics. I'm your host, Dr. Al Garza. So today we're going to be discussing a responding video to a gentleman named Shimonian. He goes by Shimonian. His name is Sam, who, brought my debate into his channel and did a review on it. He calls it part one, so there's going to be a part two. And I'm going to be bringing up another gentleman, Keith, who's a friend of mine, and he was banned simply for suggesting to have a discussion with me on the channel regarding how Sam didn't really think my arguments in my debate were sound and they were weak and everything else. So we're going to be discussing some of the things that Sam pointed out, some things that I think where he was missing the point, and discuss what could have been done better in regards to how Sam could have presented it to me, or maybe brought it out, and maybe some things I could have utilized for clarification in the debate. Because in a debate, there's a time frame we have in a debate. It's very limited with our introduction, our rebuttals, our cross-examination, our closing, as well as our Q&A. So there's only so much we can bring in, and we were bringing in a discussion on the synoptics and the deity of the Messiah. Now that is challenging by itself, because the synoptics aren't theological books that say Jesus is God in these places, like let's say the Gospel of John, which is more theological and narrative. So I have to point to certain passages that I feel are the strongest within the narrative, and not passage where I know a Unitarian can simply refute or trying to explain. So I had to select passages where I felt were the strongest in their in the way they were presented in the synoptics and utilized in all three, as well as how to question the Unitarian, the fact of where he needs to answer this in a way that shows that he's wrong. So we're going to discuss this. We're going to bring up Keith, as well as bring up Sam's whole review of my debate, and we're going to go from there, because we're also going to discuss some of Sam's tactics when he reviews my debate, which is not unheard of for Sam. But let's bring up Keith. How are you, Keith?
Hey, good to see you. Thank you for inviting me, brother.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely. And I brought you up because I know we were emailing each other back and forth, and you had told me about the video. I only caught it after he finished, so by the time I read your email, it was already done. So I wasn't able to get to it live.
But I think it was late there by you anyway. So, but yeah, it was something. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, and we're gonna see it. Definitely go over it. I noticed that when I watched it, he banned you. Obviously, he gave you a warning because he made some suggestions. Can you explain what you did originally?
It was really odd though, because I saw he was live while I was getting ready for work this morning, and then I saw, okay, he was supposed to talk to someone. They already finished the discussion, and he was reviewing your debate. I thought, wow, that's cool. Let me just quickly write a comment to him, because he actually had a discussion with me before about a video I made. And while I said, yeah, thank you for letting me know, I've removed the video because I can't find enough evidence for it. So then he's like, puts it on screen. He's like, oh, yeah, you see, look how he's humbling himself. You see what happens when you listen and everything. All great. And then straight after, he's like, but Dr. Al Garza is not humbling himself. He won't listen, you see. And I'm just thinking, okay, and I just ignore it. And I go on listening to it, and he misrepresents what you say, because he says you're not saying Adonai. He's ignoring the fact that the context you are basing on is the Greek based on the synoptics, which is from the Hebrew. So you're saying it's Adonai Yahweh. And he's just ignoring that you said Adonai. And all I commented was there, Garza said Adonai. He started insulting me, going bananas, like, oh, I'm just a troll. I'm going crazy. I didn't say anything. And well, anyway, some time goes on, I just kept quiet. And then I said it would be great to see a discussion between, Dr. Garza and him. And well, yeah, then he banned me.
Yeah. And what's interesting about that is that when you brought that up, he says, not humbling myself or I'm being arrogant. I have never talked to Sam he left a comment on my video, and I responded to the comment trying to explain to him what my position was and what I was doing in the debate, because his comment was simply, "You're embarrassing a Trinitarian, stop doing debates, blah blah blah." I'm like, okay, I don't know you like that, Sam. Why would you not just ask me, or try and at least have a dialogue and say, hey, I don't understand your debate, your questioning, you make it seem kind of weak to me. I mean, something where at least I can engage him in a way that was more friendly. But he just simply said, "You're embarrassing. Can you stop doing debates? Don't do them anymore." Da 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 da. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. So I tried to break down the points, and then he responded back, "You're arrogant. You don't want correction." I'm like, okay, one, you're not my senior, and you're not somebody who's mentoring me to correct me. If you want to have a discussion, well, I'm open to any discussion. Where you think maybe my debate was weak at, I mean, that's fine. I'm glad to hear it and maybe explain to you what I was trying to say. But then he stopped responding, and obviously, when he responded to you, is that he mentions in the video that engagement.
It's sad because just because he doesn't understand the argument doesn't mean the rest of us don't understand it, because he's going on like he doesn't understand it, so no Trinitarians understand it, no Unitarians understand it, so it's an embarrassment, you shouldn't use it. But it's such a simple argument, and I don't really get what the pushback is against it, because it was actually a very academical argument, actually, because I think the faux pas comes on his side because he's not able to understand the argument, therefore everyone else is wrong. And I think that's a flaw.
And I've had people comment on my video or email me saying the debate was great. They got it. They understood it. I talked to the whole, I mean, they didn't have an issue. They understand where I was trying to go and why the Unitarian was not wanting to answer. And I think even in the heated discussion, people misspeak. I misspoke a few times in the video. I'm thinking, well, I should have said this. So Sam's capitalizing on some of those things and then use that against me as if, that's it, no debating. It's like, that's not how debates are. You're going to have mistakes. And I've done that before in the past. I've even noticed Sam making mistakes before in the past. It doesn't mean quit debating. Again, these debates are timed and they're in a certain way where I could only bring up so much without, just wasting time. But apparently Sam doesn't see it that way. But let's do this. I'm going to bring up his video here. But there's a couple things I think is going on. I'm not here to, I know Sam was like, if I do respond to him, he's like, if Garza responds this, he's going to slander me and all this. And he actually says, if I slander him, he's evil and wicked and he's not a Christian, but yet that's what he's doing to me. It's like he's projecting what he's doing to me. And if anyone else does it the same way, then they're evil, wicked, and not a Christian. But yet he's slandering me. He gives me some praise and like great work he does. His books are great, but stupid, ignorant. I'm like, okay, that's.
Unfortunately, it's hypocritical of him because he's doing exactly the thing he's claiming, we're doing, which I think is, and that's also like just trying to get to him. It's like, I humbled myself with the correction from him. Shouldn't he also humble himself with the correction given to him?
But he admits it. He's going to admit it here. Again, that's why I think he's projecting, because he's admitting he's prideful. He has arrogance. He admits his own flaws, and therefore he projects on anybody else who doesn't agree with him in that same way, that they're the ones who are arrogant and prideful and all that, even though he admits I am. I mean, he says in the video that he is, in the sense saying, I know I'm arrogant. I know I'm prideful. I know I don't like correction. And if he assumes you don't, then you're in that same camp. And so it's projecting his way of doing things that he knows is not right, and to other people like yourself who disagree with him. There's nothing you said in your comment that I read that was any kind of insulting to him. You were making suggestions, and because of that, he didn't like it. So you weren't agreeing with him. Because you didn't agree with him, you're the problem. And that's that. Yeah, you're the troll. You're the creating incest to my picture, like he was saying. I mean, that's typical Sam response. So I get it, but I mean, there's a point where, this is why I put that verse down below, James 1:26. There's a point where, Christians and people and brothers, if anyone thinks himself to be religious and yet this does not control his tongue, but deceives his own mind, this man's religion is worthless. That's straight out of James. And this to me, in a way, reflects some of how Sam acts in a way that against other people who don't, we don't have to agree on everything. I mean, right? I mean, we don't have to agree on every single point. But if you don't agree with him on certain things that he feels strongly about, then you're the problem. And he will insult you until infinity on the issue. And that's sad.
Yeah, and I think everybody should just know we're not attacking Sam personally. We're just trying to point out that we're supposed to be working together.
Right.
You know, and unfortunately, the fruits he's showing by this is bad fruit, and we're here to correct him as brothers of Christ. And we're not trying to attack him personally. We just want to correct him so he can see what's going on, and hopefully he'll humble himself. And, you know, we can move on with this because everybody wants to be better.
Yeah.
We don't want to slag anyone off or anything. So it's just about correction.
Yeah. And I would say this, on top of that, I feel what I agree with you, but I also feel like it's not worth it because he admits he knows he's doing it. He's not someone who's denying it. He says he's arrogant, he's prideful, he has all these issues with sins and all that. Okay. He admits it, he puts it out there. So I think him knowing is something. It's just, you know what, Sam, we're just going to pray for you. Pray that, you know, what you're trying to be delivered from, that, you know, you're in these areas, that you get delivered, because it does affect how people view him and how he responds to people in the way that he does, and turns off a lot of people. And that's just, I mean, that shouldn't be, I mean, he could reach so many more people if he wasn't so insulting to everybody who doesn't agree with him, even believers and Christians who are trying to learn from him. The minute he goes off and starts doing the things he says he knows he's doing is wrong, he does it anyway.
Yeah.
It's so, I mean, there's nothing to me, at least, to tell him other than that's between you and God. You know your errors and your faults. You admit them to everybody. So between you and God, how God deals with you on that, that's completely up to you. That's between you and him. I'm not going to say any corrections because there's nothing he's not aware of than what he does.
It's true. He's open about it. I 100% agree.
He is, definitely. And that's why I think it's a problem, because he projects that to everybody else. Like everybody else is that way. Like, I'm that way. I'm arrogant. I don't want to be corrected. No, I think there's a way of doing it without being insulting, because all you're doing is you're insulting another brother against Scripture about calling, insulting or saying things to brother, which is forbidden in Scripture, especially Matthew 7. You don't do that. You don't do that. You need to. I mean, he could have easily reached out to me on the comment. Hey, I do want to reach out to you, like kind of what we do, discuss, email, hey, whatever. And then if you want to have a live discussion on it, I'll be glad to show where you think I'm wrong or not wrong, or what the issue is. But I want to play this. Let's take a look at what he is looking at here. Let me give it this here, because this is where he gets into it quite a bit. So, all right, let me pull this up. Oops. Sorry, I'm putting
like I was saying before we started, unfortunately, he doesn't take everything in context. He only cherry picks the parts he wants to show his audience. So I think that is a bit of a dishonest tactic, as we're putting out.
Yeah, I thought he was going to do a debate review on the debate, not only on the cross exam, because he didn't go through my presentation. He didn't go through the rebuttals, what Luke was saying, because my whole thing was my cross exam was based on Luke's response in his rebuttal and my presentation, which he never went through. And even in the end Q&A, where I brought up even more and clarification. So he selectively picked out, and then he would stop me on the video right when I was trying to explain what I was saying. He stopped me and then criticized it and insulted me on it, and then played it, and you could hear my response. Like, I said what you were saying, but maybe not the way he wanted, but I said it. Yeah. So that's the way it went.
One interesting part that was kept sticking out to me was when he was trying to correct you on the Greek. It's like, it's Kyrios moon, But in the same breath, he's telling you, but it wasn't written in Greek. It was written in Hebrew. So
Right,
why are you
right.
bringing up the curious moon then? That's Greek.
Exactly. And he was kind of doing that back and forth. And I know he's using modern Greek. I'm using more of the Erasmian Greek with
Korean.
Kurian and all. He was using more of modern Greek pronunciation with even Benjamin Cantor has a different vocalization of it. So there's different ways of saying it, which he understands, okay, either one, whether it's Kurion or Kidion or, we can use either way, but same point is being made.
Same thing.
Same thing. But let's listen. I want to play this part and we can hear him out.
He has written some good books. He has knowledge of the original languages. And some of his stuff is excellent. Some great arguments for the Trinity. But, however, a lot of his arguments are weak. He's not a great debater. He's not a great communicator. But he is going after Unitarians to try to expose them and prove the Trinity, which is thankful because we want more people joining the battle. Her name is Kitty, dude. That's her name, Ali, Kitty. We want more people joining the battle. So we don't want less, we want more, but we want people to know their stuff, do their homework, and not use weak arguments that can discredit our witness and be turned against us. So I saw the debate. I've seen him make some arguments. I've been silent, but this one I had to correct. Again, pride and arrogance kicks in. We're all proud and arrogant. I'm not just saying to say, I got pride, dude. I got arrogance because I'm a sinner. I struggle with sin, with lust. I'm a pig. I beg Jesus to forgive me and strengthen me and not hand me over, right? I don't like to be corrected because I'm an egomaniac. That's just a fact. We don't like to be corrected. So my prayer is God in his mercy will give me the grace to be humble and accept correction if it's presented in the right spirit.
Okay. Do you notice what he said there? In the right spirit, but yet that's not how he presents his correction to other people. When he did it to me in the comment, it was like just shot out, stop debating, you're weak, you're this, you're that, you're embarrassed. I'm like, really? I mean, that's how you're going to first respond to my video. That's the spirit you want to lead after admitting that, only in the right spirit for him. In other words, it's good for me, but not for you.
The irony of what he just said, though, was kind of oxymoron because he's contradicting himself. He's trying to play the role of, everybody should be a good communicator. You should go, but he is actually giving bad communication up because he's giving two different arguments. He's trying to play the good guy and the bad guy at the same time. You can't just say because I struggle with this, therefore it exempts me from it. That's not how it really works. You still have to at least try and be humble and seek correction or whatever. But the fact that he says, well, you're a bad debater and stuff, I'm calling nonsense on that.
Go ahead.
Because when I've looked at your debates, I mean, just like this one with Luke, we all know Luke to be a guy that runs away from answering. And that's what the cross-exam was, trying to get him to answer specific answer that he hasn't answered in his rebuttals.
Right.
And the fact that he's now saying, well, this is a weak argument and you're not representing Christianity correct. No, unfortunately, Sam, you are not representing Christianity correct because your fruits are showing to be bad. That's the unfortunate truth. The argument Dr. Garza gave is actually a brilliant argument, and it's based on the synoptics. It's based on the topic they were discussing. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying earlier. The synoptics are more of a challenge when it comes to the deity. We have to look at the markers that we can utilize because Unitarians have these excuses, many excuses and answers for some of these other passages of the worship and all these things, forgiven sins, which is fine. But when you deal with specific verses like the Psalm 110 quotation, when I was trying to bring out, or the vocative of kuti, I mean, all these things I was trying to point out because Luke was saying, nowhere in the synoptics is Jesus ever called God or Yahweh in any sense. So I was trying to show the point. Well, yes, these are direct passages that affirm that from the languages of the Greek translation as well as in the Hebrew. And that's where I was trying to get Luke to see or try to put him in that position. And Sam apparently did not get it. In that respect, he gets it, but he doesn't like it. That's fine. Every argument's not for him. That's fine. But other people did get it, yourself and others, and the argument it stands and academically. I mean, I wrote the reason also I brought that is because one of my second master's, I wrote my capstone thesis on Psalm 110:1 in connection with the gospel. So I'm very familiar with the background of how it should read from the language of Greek, Hebrew, Aramaic, the sacred name abbreviation, all things that Sam was criticizing and mocking. I wrote my thesis on in more detail. So I brought up the condensed version of trying to get Luke to see certain points of that. And so Sam just simply wasn't having it. I mean, honestly, I don't think he fully grasped the idea, but
yeah.
But let's go on, because that's what I thought was interesting, is that he expects people to come to him with a certain spirit, but he doesn't feel he should do that himself, which is being hypocritical in that respect. Because if you're going to have people come to you a certain way in a certain spirit, why don't you do that to the other people, rather than just insulting them, mocking them, and then criticizing them? So, all right, let's go on.
Right, but he didn't like my comment in the comment section. We went at it, and I said, dude, you need to stop. If I'm not getting your point, Unitarians aren't getting your point, Trinitarians don't get your point, then maybe it's because you're a terrible communicator and you suck.
There you go. If all Christians, again, the whole general blanket, don't get it, then yeah, I suck. And here's a Unitarian, Rivers. I've had discussions with Rivers of Eden here in the comment section.
Very nice guy.
Very nice guy. I love talking to him. Here's what I'm a Unitarian. I think Dr. Garza does a fine job communicating. It's obvious, and I've had discussion with him, and he gets my points. He understands it. He's heard me debate, and he sometimes says Unitarians don't want to concede to certain things that he knows they're wrong in, and so forth. So even with Rivers of Eden here, he understands, and I mean, he has a degree, he has a master's in divinity. He's about my age, so you know, he's not even a Christian. He's a Unitarian. He gets it.
Yeah, and even Luke got it. That's why he didn't want to answer you.
Yes, I know Luke got it. He was trying to deviate from it, which we're going to see. But let's continue, because I want to continue all of this.
So if I don't get your point, and I did get his point, I understood it, and it was weak and bad, then maybe that's more proof you're not.
Real quick, I didn't get his point, but I did get his point. It's just weak and bad. So did you catch that?
Yeah.
He said, I didn't get his point. I did get his point, but it's just weak and bad. So yeah, it's either you didn't get my point or you did. You can't have it both ways. Either you did or you didn't. And he admits he did after. He just said, I didn't get his point. Mm-hmm. But I did get his point. It's just weak and bad. Okay, that's one thing to say. You can say that, but don't say you didn't get my point and then say I did get it. Just simply say I understood his point. It just didn't feel it was weak and it was a good point. But to admit it after saying I don't get his point, well, I did get his point. But it's okay. I mean, I don't know if he hears him. I mean, I think he does. He doesn't hear himself because he's speaking so quickly and trying to go through this so fast. But he does the same things that he accuses me of doing in others, and that's why I say it becomes more of like projecting a lot of what he's saying.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is what I was saying. He's having bad communication at the moment because he's not talking coherently. He is contradicting himself in his own sentences, and that is bad communication. So It's really sad that he's projecting it onto you, while in the meantime, he's not able to just coherently give a statement.
Right. And I think I misspoke earlier because I think with Rivers, well, I consider myself a Christian even though I'm not a Unitarian. Yeah, I apologize. I think I said he's not a Christian as a Unitarian. What I meant was he's not the Trinitarian Christian. He's a Unitarian Christian. So he's not even a Christian as a Trinitarian perspective, but he's a Trinitarian. He's a Unitarian Christian. So he even though we don't agree, he gets it and he understands the point. And we have this discussion. So I apologize for that, Rivers. Didn't mean to say it that way. But let's move on real quick.
Not a good debater. You should stop. Obviously, he's not going to like me. He's not going to be fond of me. And then I hope he doesn't go the route of defamation and slander, because that's what they do. But God have mercy on him. I pray God will strengthen him to get stronger and better, because we want more soldiers. Why do you think I tell you guys, learn the material accurately, make sure you're focused, share it accurately, don't misinterpret. And it's yours. We need thousands of you. May God keep me humble, teachable. It's not about me. We need thousands of you, right? You hear me there?
That I agree.
Okay. So learn the material. So with that said, we're going to look at his review, and I'm going to go into the cross-ex. I'm going to demolish Unitarian because he's one of the worst. This Unitarian sucked. Terrible, arrogantly stupid and terrible. But I expect that. He's a Unitarian. He worships a false god, and he's the son of Satan. So we're going to talk about it, and we're going to learn how not to argue. And I know he's not going to be happy, but it is what it is. His argument, our Trinitarian brother, because he's a brother, he loves the Lord Jesus Christ, he's a Trinitarian. Argument is bad. Argument, very weak, and he contradicts himself, but he doesn't see it. May God give him grace to correct himself, be humble, and I pray I'm humble. God save me from my flesh. I just got to make this qualification. I don't want to discredit someone when we need more people in the battle. But at the same time, I don't want someone to go there represent us who's arguing terribly and doing a worse job and shaming us, especially if he's going to double down, not accept correction, and we don't need you. Step down.
See, that's what I'm saying.
Right?
There's
Step down.
hypocrisy. There's
Yeah.
hypocrisy.
Yeah. That's the problem, is that he prays for all this stuff for himself, but yet, and then he says, if I defamation, if I go after him, slander on him, that again, and he's going to say that again, but say that if I do that, then I'm the evil and wicked one with, I don't know, some of the comments about me being not a Christian. If I do what he's doing, again, projecting what he's doing onto me, is if I respond the same way, which I don't, and I'm not, I'm the one who's not a Christian and all this stuff, which I think, again, it hurts his whole position. But
Because, I mean, look at the fruits.
Right.
I mean, when someone else is not a Christian looking at his behavior and what he's saying right now, that puts them off of Christianity.
Right.
That's not the ambassador way of presenting Christianity.
Right. Exactly. And that's the problem. But yeah.
So let's go into the cross-ex. Let me explain the argument. We're going to have fun. We'll spend an hour, and Lord willing, I'll come back and do subsequent parts. May the Lord bless our numbers to be content with few, quality over quantity. All right? Amen in the beginning. Keep using stuff. Now, glory to God. See, it works. See, in the beginning, I try to give you arguments that are battle-tested, used in battle, irrefutable, that cannot be refuted, and destroy the opposition. That's the kind of arguments I want you to use, because you have the truth. Our God is triune. The triune God lives. Jesus is God Almighty. The Bible is a Trinitarian revelation. These are facts, can't be refuted. So anyone who tells you the Bible doesn't teach it, they're a false teacher, deceived and or a deceiver. Okay? So with that said, let me set up the argument. He argues that Jesus in Mark 12, 35, 37, which also appears in Matthew 22, verses 41 to 46, and Luke 20, 41 to 44. Let me repeat. Mark 12, 35 to 37. Matthew 22, 41 to 44. I'm sorry, 41 to 46. Matthew 22, 41 to 46. And Luke 20, 41, 44. Quote the same saying of our Lord. All right. This guy doesn't stop. Should have got this guy out of here for manifesting and foaming. Where our Lord quotes Psalm 110:1, where David by the Holy Spirit says, the Lord said to my Lord, sit on my right hand to make your enemies a footstool. Then he argues that the Lord Jesus says that David called Messiah Kiriyun, or Kurian. It's Kiriyun. Now, let me tell you what Kiriyun is. Let me show you first. All right, let's go here. Let me get it for you to set you up. And why this is a terrible argument. Here it is. And then he contradicts himself later, which we'll get to in part 2, because I'm going to demolish the arguments of the Unitarian, showing you that he's a clown. He doesn't know the Bible. He worships a false god. I hope he repents. Now watch here. To set up the cross X. Ready? Focus. Set up the cross X. You ready? Kyriou, not Kyrie eleison, loser. Kyrie eleison means Lord have mercy. Kyriou, the accusative of Kyrios or Kyrios or Kyrios. All right. Jesus responded as he taught in the temple, how is it that the scribes say that the Christ is the son of David? For David himself said in the Holy Spirit, the Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies the footstool of your feet. And I'm going to show you where our Trinitarian brother in the Lord Jesus, who boasts about being a scholar and has degrees, will end up contradicting himself in the subsequent part of my review.
So I boast. He threw that cheap shot in there. Boasts about his credential. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, it's quite crazy, man. And one thing I have to point out, notice he's presenting to his audience now. He didn't tell everybody this is about the synoptics. The debate is specifically about the synoptics. So he's not actually giving the context of what's going on here.
No. He's not telling you about the synoptics regarding the topic of the divinity of Jesus in the synoptics. He's not going through my presentation, my opening, or my rebuttal to what Luke was saying. He simply is jumping into the cross, setting something up without giving the whole background behind the debate and what it was about. And then criticizing that I'm a boaster. I don't even know the guy. I've never met him. How do what do I boast? I mean, I you know, every person who's has any academic training, if they've gone so far, yeah, they post their bio, because people, like, I've had Unitarians, you know, criticize me or criticize other people. You're not a scholar, you're not this, or that you are, but you're, it doesn't matter either way. So if I post it, I'm boasting, and my bio is online, or if I don't say nothing, then I'm a fake and a fraud. So yeah, you can't win either way.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean,
yeah.
And the fact that you do have those qualifications, it helps to show you have this qualification so that people can see, okay, you actually know what you're talking about. Because the problem, let's say the difference between Constance with you and me, I don't have the qualifications, for instance, okay? So when I say something, I don't have the authority to say it because, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't have any papers or whatever. But with you, on the other hand, is because you do have those qualifications. They can't go and say, you don't know what's going on.
Right. Or I don't know what scholars are saying, or I'm not up to date. I mean, I have books that cost what more people make on their house payment because I had to buy these things and read them, from books that cost $300-400 from major publishing companies you can't get online through like Amazon, because we have to. And so this opens the door to seeing other things that most people will not be able to see who aren't in academia. So it's like you said, something with boasting. It's just training. Some people are trained differently and are able to train more in the area of biblical studies than other people. So it's fine either way. But I noticed he threw that cheap shot in there. I'm like, that's just, really, you had to go there. But let's continue.
But I'm going to remind you of it. But just remember this. Therefore, David himself calls him Lord. So how can he be his son? The common people heard him gladly. Now, let me give you a little grammar. Now, guys, I was thrown out of high school. I got a GED. Never been to college, never been to seminary, never been to university. If I can get it, you can get it. Why? The Holy Spirit, who loves me, loves you. He loves you just as much as he loves me. May he fill us to overflowing. And if I can get it by the grace of God's Spirit, you can. You don't need to be a scholar. Because if you needed to be a scholar, that means Chicagoan and Tony Guiliana would have to leave, because they'll never get it. There's no hope for them. But thank the Lord that you don't need to be a scholar. You can be uneducated like them and still get it. Amen? Amen?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's listening, but yeah.
Right? That's it. Let me encourage you. No formal education, and I got it, because the Holy Spirit is almighty. He takes foolish things of this world, gives them wisdom to silence the scholars of this age. So there's hope for Tony Guiliana and Chicagoan. uneducated, but there's hope for them. All right. Let me get you the link here. I want you to see the word for Lord is Kyrion or Kurion. Kurion, Kyrion. Amen, folks? Amen. Okay. Kyrion, Kurion. This word here, Kyrion. If you go there, this is known as the accusative form of the word Kyrios. Let me give you a little grammar lesson. Kyrios. All right. In Greek, a noun will be written differently depending on its position in a sentence. The form of the word will be spelled differently. For example, when you see the word Kyrios in Greek, this is known as the nominative case. Let me go a little bit to teach you. I wish they didn't come up with these terms, nominative case, but nonetheless they do. Let me break it down for you.
Let's I don't know if I'm gonna go through all that. He's just gonna go through the different tenses in Greek, obviously the nominative and the accusative and the dative and the genitive and the vocative cases. Okay, granted, that's neither here or there what we're going to be discussing, but again, it's all built off of the one word, the kurios or kyrios, however you want, modern Greek or Erasmian Greek, kurios, kyrios. But again, it's nothing to do with the argument that we're going to see, because the tenses is all based upon where it lies in the sentence. Okay, that's not my argument. That wasn't my argument to bring about that in. So I'm going to kind of bypass this, because everybody can do their own, and people can watch it on their own after this and see what you're trying to say if they want to learn what he's saying. But I want to bypass this.
It's the basics. It is actually the basics he's giving. But again, it is kind of deceptive, because he's not really giving the context of what he's saying.
Right.
And he's kind of painting the picture like, this guy's a doctorate, he's boasting, but he doesn't even know the difference between kurio and kurios. That's
right.
what he's doing. And I find that a bit wrong.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. He's acting, and that wasn't the debate about the tenses. It wasn't a discussion, the cross-examination at all. So it's not relevant at that point. But I want to move forward past that. Let's go from here.
Called him Kyrion or Kurion. Kyrion or Kurion, right? Keep that in mind. Because he's going to make an argument that means absolutely nothing, and it was pathetically bad. And I'm going to demolish this clown's arguments later. Let's go here.
Gentlemen, that wraps up opening statements of 15 minutes and rebuttals of 10. And therefore, we got a lot of points to cover and go back and forth on in a cross-exam. Cross-exam, we have 50 minutes in total. We'll break it up into two 25-minute sections.
Our technology makes coal 7 to 10 times more valuable than it is today, while drastically reducing it.
What I'd like for the cross-exam is to focus on doing our best to ask direct questions. But of course, let's give each other enough time to build up to the question itself for contact.
He calls himself Dr. Al Garza because he's got degrees. That's him, the Trinitarian, PhD. So what? People who are into titles, dude. This guy's a Unitarian heretic, and he's pathetically bad. I'll demolish him, Lord willing, in the upcoming review.
Why is he attacking you? You're not even there. He's like attacking you, like just because you got PhD in your name, they're there for you. It's like,
I'm into titles. Everyone's in the titles. It's like another cheap shot. It's just another cheap shot. Everyone's in the titles. Yeah, Jesus was called a rabbi. John was called a rabbi. They're all in the title. We're all in the titles. I mean, it's interesting because people who have, I don't know why that's an issue for him when he has to bring it up and throw a cheap shot. Everyone. I hope that everyone goes to a doctor, a dentist, or somebody has a title of an MD, because you don't want somebody just, not treating you with just their YouTube and their book, and that's it professionally. So like you said earlier, there are different levels of academic training. And so what? Yeah, I was able to go beyond a simple master's and go to my PhD and working on a second one, which is something I chose to do. I do it for the simply that I love the scriptures. I love the Bible. I love the Lord. So I want to learn and continue to learn and always learn. And along the way, you do get degrees when you continue to do so. And
Yeah.
to simply show that means you have some, like you said, credibility to what we say. It's not something that can be said, well, they're not scholars. They don't know what they're talking about. It's the opposite. So it gives some credence or credibility, right?
Amen. Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Provide direct and focused answers, and also giving each other a little bit of time there to
by the way.
answer the question in a bit of detail. And so, okay, what we'll do is hand it to Dr. Al Garza to lead the way in cross-exam for the first 25 minutes. And so whenever you're ready, Dr. Garza, you can begin. And just make sure to click unmute before you.
Ryan, it was the beginning screen. What are you talking about?
Got it.
You're good. Good to go.
Go watch it over there.
Oh, and this was
Okay,
just
thank
off,
you, Luke. I appreciate that. Appreciate your presentation as well. What was that?
and this was just after Luke's rebuttal, guys. So this is the context that Sam's not really getting let everybody know, because this is building off of Luke's rebuttal he gave.
Exactly, because yeah, you're right. It went from my rebuttal to his rebuttal, and then we're going to cross-examine. I was going to be addressing one of his rebuttal points about Jesus not being called God anywhere. And yeah, you're right. This is the foundation is not laid here. It's just jumping into something without getting the backdrop of why I'm questioning him on this one point.
Exactly.
Well, as this discussion, I do want to address a couple things that you said, and I want to ask you first. You tried to explain the reference where Jesus cites part of Psalm 110 prior, where Jesus is saying that David in the Spirit calls him Lord, and the leading up to that. What was your explanation for him calling him Lord, or what was your understanding of that?
Here, Psalm 110.
As the exalted Messiah to God's right hand, Jesus is certainly exalted above King David as status
As status
and
So-
authority and honor and glory, everything.
So when he says David calls him Kurion, from the Greek translation of the scribe, what would that mean?
So kurion is the accusative form of the word kurios. It's not a special form. It's just how you would parse kurios as the direct object of the sentence. So Yahweh is exalting the Lord, my Lord.
Okay.
So
he's receiving the object. That's why he's using kurion.
Well, Kurion isn't in Psalm 110:1. It's
Notice
used
that.
in this sense of
He
being
said
called.
Kurion in Psalm 110:1. David doesn't use Kurion. Keep that in mind. Psalm 110:1.
So what
He
you
doesn't
said,
use Kurion.
Yeah,
that's not what you said.
yeah,
And I just want to point out, Luke is using the argument from N.T. Wright, and that's exactly why he's trying to put this normative case of he's on the right hand and just exalted Messiah. And that's exactly why you're trying to show, but that's not the language that's actually been used there. And I mean, you obviously N.T. Wright's writings, so you're already able to foresee what his arguments are based on.
right. And I think that's where Sam didn't get that point. I'm trying to get ahead of what Luke is going to say, because I know what he's going to try and present as a Unitarian, the argument. And Luke is going right into Psalm 110:1, ignoring the context of what David in the Spirit. And I'm reading off of Matthew, not Mark, because Mark actually has it at the end, and Matthew puts that in the front, as far as saying David in the Spirit calls Jesus Lord before quoting Psalm 110. So I was reading off of Matthew, not Mark or Luke, which is at the end. So my point was, when Jesus refers to David, obviously refers to David in the Spirit calling the Messiah Lord. What is that Lord? That's the point. Before he quotes it, he makes that statement, because I was trying to say, Jesus did not say, from the Greek translation, let me be clear if I can know what I'm going to say. Jesus did not say, my Lord, the way it's read in Psalm 110:1. He just simply said Lord. So what is the Lord? From the Greek, here's the grammatical, it's kurion. If it's, from the Psalm 110, obviously grammatically it's speaking of my Lord, kidiomu, to my Lord. That's fine. The point is, Jesus didn't say right off the bat, David called him my Lord, or the Lord of me, or something to that extent. It was just simply Lord. And I was trying to get to the point of how is that used in the book of Psalms when Jesus is referencing that about the Messiah as a testimony of David from the languages. I think that's what Sam didn't understand in that point. I was trying to get Luke to see that point first before quoting Psalm 110:1, which would affirm what Jesus would have said right there in the beginning. Did that make sense?
Yes, 100%. And that's exactly what we're getting from the beginning. And that's why I said that's not exactly what you said, because he was saying, no, you're saying it's never used.
Right.
And that's not what you said.
Right. Yeah. We're going to look at that. Yeah. Okay.
Keep that in mind. This is what Al Garza is saying, and he's right. But now watch his entire argument. Watch his entire argument.
That where does David ever refer to anyone in the book of Psalms that's attributed to him as being written other than Yahweh Adonai as Kurion? I mean, in the book of Psalms itself, where it says David himself calls him Lord, Kurion in the Greek.
Notice the argument. Where do you find David calling anyone besides Yahweh Kurion in the Greek? Kurion, Kyrion. Keep that in mind. Notice what he's asking. Jesus says David called Messiah Christ Kyrion, which he's saying Kurion. Kyrion, Kyrios. Kyrion, that's the way you write it when it's the direct object. Kyrion. If it's the subject, to be Kyrios, Kyrios, or they would say Kurios. Doesn't matter. Where does David call anyone besides Yahweh in the Psalms Kurion? Keep that in mind.
What
Psalm
Hebrew
110:1.
equivalent? Yeah, well, Jesus didn't say my Lord. I mean, if Jesus would have said David in the psalm calls him my Lord, then you would have a case, Kurios mu, or Kurios, something in that sense of being grammatically. But he says Kurion. Now, in the book of Psalms, where is Kurion ever used for anyone other than by David's writings, other than Yahweh Adonai?
It doesn't matter. We're reading the synoptics.
Right, and Jesus is referring to, in the synoptics, he's referencing David calling you, because you said that nowhere in the synoptics is Jesus ever called God. So if Jesus himself says
Right.
David calls him the Messiah, Kurion, which David only uses that term for Adonai Yahweh, or even just Yahweh or Adonai, doesn't that contradict what you just said?
This is why this is such a bad argument. Please, my brothers, never use it. Why? Number one, he admitted to you. I want you to listen why I say it's bad. Okay? Why is it bad? He just told you David did not use the word Kurion in Psalm 110:1. Keep that in mind. Now he's telling you David never used Kurion in the Psalms for anyone besides Yahweh. But we have a problem, folks. I want to see how many of you caught the problem. How many of you caught the problem? Kurion or Kyrion, that's the Greek. Why should I expect to find David using a Greek word when he's writing in Hebrew? See how bad this argument was?
You see? That's why, because you're not giving the context that you guys are talking about the synoptics. And you even said there, based on the synoptics, which is Greek.
Yeah. And I even clarified in the beginning of my question.
Yeah.
I even clarified saying the scribe who wrote the Greek.
The Greek, yeah.
Use it, and how David in translating David's words from there, and how the Hebrew is what's the Hebrew. I even clarified in the beginning of my question to Luke, saying the scribe who wrote it. Yes, it's attributed to David in the Septuagint, translated from the Hebrew. We all know that. It's no one's it's like we know that. So we're using general terms that we all understand. When I say David writing this way, finding it in the Greek, we know it's a translation. Luke everybody knows this common knowledge that this is written that way. Yes, David wrote in Hebrew. What I'm saying is, for the Unitarian, and even for Christians who believe that with the Septuagint as a whole of the Old Testament having more of inspired, also because it's quoted so much, you have to use both in the argument, because Luke is going to go back and forth with the Greek and the Hebrew, and then going. I mean, so yes, I mean, I don't understand what Sam is saying here or criticizing when yeah.
He hasn't really got an argument against it other than saying it's bad, because his whole argument is, why are you fighting for the Greek when Psalms is written in Hebrew? It's, again, the context is based on the synoptics. The synoptics is Greek.
Exactly.
And you've already explained it. You're going to explain it later. Adonai Yahweh.
Right.
You're literally going to say it.
And I even mentioned here translated as Adonai Yahweh, as far as being comparison. That was the whole point. You know, what my point here is that Jesus is called Kurion, and you get a Kirion. Either way, obviously, what I'm saying is Jesus did not choose a different, not in Greek, but let me clarify, the translations of the Greek did not put Jesus's words as my Lord, citing Psalm 110, which that would have been different. What I'm saying is, or even a different grammatical structure to fit Psalm 120. It's just simply Lord. So what is the Lord there? Is this a Lord as a divine name, a title, or is this simply Lord Master with now going to say my Lord? And that's what I was saying. In the whole book of Psalms, other than Psalm 110:1, where it's Adoni, it's never used, identified that way, because the whole Psalm is focused on Yahweh Adonai, someplace Elohim. It's never used for anyone other than him, these titles all throughout the book of Psalms. So it's like the attributing of all the Psalms are to Yahweh Adonai. And so we find that in the Greek, with the translation of all these words being used, they're only applied that way to Yahweh Adonai, with very minor few exceptions of some Psalms that aren't attributed to David or a phrase, but it doesn't even affect anything. But the 99% is all that way. And so I'm trying to show you, look, the whole Psalm dedicated to Yahweh Adonai. This is what Jesus is referring to, as far as even David in the Psalm we're going to talk about. I'm trying to lay it out where if we can understand what Lord is, it sets up what Psalm 110:1 should be, not Adoni.
Mm-hmm.
It's an embarrassment. It is embarrassingly bad. Do you understand? David wrote in Hebrew. Why are you asking him to show you where David called anyone Kyrion besides Yahweh, when David did not write in Greek?
Synoptic Greek.
See how bad this argument is? I mean, it's so embarrassingly bad. He thinks we don't get it. He gets it, which means you suck. Because if we're all seeing what a bad argument is, that means you're a terrible communicator. It's a terrible argument, folks. David wrote in Hebrew. Why would I expect David to use the word Kyrion when he's not writing Greek, but in Hebrew?
And no one's saying that. Argument. No one is, not once that I ever,
continue.
Right, not once did I ever make that argument or even say that. I said this. I even mentioned the scribe who translated. It's even my presentation. I put there the scribe translating Psalm. I even put that in my presentation, which he did not get into. I clarified all that in my presentation, in my rebuttal, and even at the end, at the closing, where I demonstrate the Jewish tradition of Psalm 110:1 is not about the Messiah. Their tradition that is speaking about Abraham, David, or even Hezekiah in their earliest tradition. It's not even messianic, and that's why they put Adoni. They put Adoni there in the vowel pointings because they didn't believe, because Christians, as he's going to admit, were using that passage to show the deity of the Messiah. And so Jews early on were saying that's not even about the Messiah. That's either David, Abraham, or even Jerome said it was referring to the Jews interpret as being Abraham's servant that's speaking about, which I don't even know. That's ridiculous. So the Jews did not recognize this as a messianic term. That's why it's Adoni there. And I was trying to lay it out where if we have Lord as being the divine name, then that's going to set up Psalm 110:1 as being the divine title, Adonai, or even Yahweh, but Adonai as being referred there, like in verse 5. Exactly. So you have to first establish the Lord, and then why Jesus said Lord and what Lord he's using from the Hebrew and even from the Greek synoptics of the translation, and then establish Psalm 110:1 as being not my Lord like my master, but a divine title.
I don't understand what's so hard to understand with that.
I don't either. That's the point I'm trying to make.
I really don't.
I don't get it. You have to take it. And yes, I'm doing it from a very linguistic academic view, but people do understand, like yourself and others, understand what I'm trying to build off of that. And that Luke is trying to avoid. And then Sam has accused me of things that I'm not even doing or trying to do.
Yeah, and I mean, Luke got it because that's why he doesn't want to answer, because he knows if he has to answer you, his whole argument is bunk. He cannot claim the Messiah is not God.
Right, exactly.
Simple as that.
And
so it's a very strong argument.
Yeah, and he can't say that nowhere in the Synoptics Jesus is not called God. Here it is. Here it is by Jesus' own lips in translation in the Greek, in the Hebrew, in the Old, right there. It's right there.
So if David only says my Lord to the Messiah one time, but every other time he says my Lord to Yahweh himself,
Well,
that wouldn't be a contradiction.
Well,
it
let me
would
help
just be an exception to his pattern.
Well, that's not what David said. What said David? Jesus didn't quote before. Jesus quotes Psalm 110:1 before he makes the exact quote. He says David in the Spirit calls him Lord, not my Lord, Lord. Greek kurion, which is equivalent to in the Hebrew of the Book of Psalms by David as Adonai or Yahweh.
Okay, so why are you asking him to show you where David called someone Kyrion or Kurion when David wrote Hebrew, and you admitted that David did not call Messiah in Psalm 110 Kyrion. Did you remember that?
Wait, listen to this.
He said Psalm 110, David doesn't use the word Kyrion or Kurion as he pronounces it. Yeah, because David is writing Hebrew. So he says Neom Yahweh la Adoni. He uses Adoni. And the Greek doesn't use Kyrion, it uses Kyrio or Kyrio, the dative.
All right, let's stop right there real quick. Again, he missed my whole point. He doesn't get the distinction I'm making between Jesus referring to David as calling him Lord and Psalm 110:1, the result of that. They're different. They're not the same. And that's what he's not getting. So he's accusing me, going back to what I said earlier, which is correct. And the reason I'm asking Luke, as you caught, is because I want to show that Luke can't escape the fact that the grammatical structure there, even used in the Book of Psalms, is always addressed to Yahweh Adonai that way. For nobody else. So Jesus is literally saying, at least from my argument, is that David in the Spirit called him Adonai or even Yahweh. And then references Psalm 121 to support that by saying that the Lord said to Adonai or even Yahweh. Ishudat of Merv, who is in the 19th and the 9th century, wrote a commentary. He's a Syriac church father, wrote a commentary stating that he said that the original Hebrew of Psalm 110:1 is Yahweh said to Yahweh. Yeah. And that it was changed. So we have an early eyewitness of the early church father, Ishudat of Merv, Syriac, reading the Hebrew in the Syriac scriptures, the Aramaic, and saying that it was originally Yahweh said to Yahweh before it was changed.
And that's what's strong about this, and that's why you're trying to point out if Jesus is quoting it in a certain way, it was actually Adonai. It wasn't Adoni, it was Adonai. Right. So this is a very strong case for Psalm 110 showing it was Adonai and not Adoni originally.
Right, and it seems that Sam is conflating my argument with the first part as if it's directly a quotation to the second part, and it's not. That's why I think I'm trying to show that the first part is Adonai or Yahweh, and that follows with the second part. So, and yet he's going to try and misrepresent what I said here, and that's why I think it gets kind of messy. Let's see.
Let me double check. I just want to make sure. So you see, this guy makes no sense. Let me double check if it's in the dative, Kyrio.
Yeah, it is in the dative.
Let me just double check, because remember, it's been a long time. How does this make your case? How does asking him to show you where David called someone other than Yahweh, Kyrion, make your case when David never used it for Jesus in Psalm 110? And David did not write in Greek. He wrote in Hebrew, and the word is Adoni, which You can say it should have been Adonai. Nonetheless, my point is David didn't even use that term because he didn't write in Greek. And even the Greek translation, Psalm 110, uses to Kyrio, the dative, not the accusative. What is this guy talking about?
This seems very reaching, and it does seem very ignorant to me. I'm sorry, but I think Sam hasn't really looked into this a bit. So he's looked into later translation kind of things and just accepted it without
Right.
actually looking further.
Yeah, and I'll bring this point up here because this has come up too. Some passages in the Talmud do attribute Psalm 110:1 to be the Messiah. Later traditions, going later on in the Talmud, dealing close to the Middle Ages, they started to attribute David or Messiah, or even Abraham or Messiah in the passage later on. But the earliest, from Akiva and others, rejected the messianic interpretation and either said David, Abraham, or Hezekiah, and even Abraham's servant. So yes, later on they started to incorporate it, but this is going towards the Middle Ages. So again, it wasn't an earliest tradition that it was a messianic, because the Christians were using that. The early church was using it as a messianic text against the Jews. So yes, that comes later on, but it wasn't part of the earliest tradition. It wasn't even there. And what Sam is reflecting here, again, he's conflating my argument, because again, I'm establishing the Lord as divine title Adonai to fit Psalm 110:1 Adonai, not Adoni. And it's not Adoni. I don't believe it is at all, because again, that's a commentary put in by the scribes in the Middle Ages against what the Syriac church fathers said, against what we know from the Hebrew without the Nikud, and against the vocalization of the early church fathers who put that as a divine title, and even in translation in the Greek. And he even criticizes, well, those are Christians. Why does it matter if the Christians put the nomen Asakara under the sacred name? Because that's what the belief was of how they understood it, not as Adoni. That's a piece of evidence that I don't think Sam understands. You point the evidence. The early church fathers believed it was a divine title. It was Adonai. We got all the way back to Issue of Birth. I don't understand what he's not getting. Do you?
I don't really understand why he's trying to fight against this, to be honest. It's almost like he's trying to fight for the Unitarian here.
Mm-hmm.
For some odd reason, trying to defend the fact that Luke believes it's Adoni.
Right. And Sam's
yeah,
helping him.
Yeah, he doesn't actually have an argument against what you presented at all. And that's what I was saying. This almost seems, and it's sad because Sam is very well knowledge, but what he's presenting here is based on ignorance, because like I said, he's giving later translations and he's just accepting it as the get going. And that's not how it should be done.
And I'll even make a point. I didn't make it in the video, which I should have, because it was going so quickly, is that even Adonai is translated in the Septuagint as Kyrios Mu. And we have a place of two Kyrios Mu, or even Kyrios Mu. Even the Tetragrammaton outside the Book of Psalms in the Greek translations of the Hebrew is actually used as tu Kyrio Mu. We have evidence of that even outside the Book of Psalms. So my point was, in the Book of Psalms, we have more of Adonai being translated as Kyrios Mu, and Adoni this is the only place in the entire Book of Psalms, all 150 Psalms, where Adoni is ever used, ever. Ladoni. Never is it used anywhere else. In fact, David in Hebrew uses Ladonai, and even La Yehovah or La Yahweh, however you want, different ways of using it, but La and then the Tetragrammaton more times than La Adonai. And this is the only place in the entire Book of Psalms where you find an Adoni. Nowhere else do you find it. Which again shows you why the scribes put it there for tradition, not because believing what David really said in Hebrew. So this is the whole point. Yeah.
Yeah, they were trying to make it more about, for instance, like Abrahamic figure, because to them, they didn't want to show it to be the Messiah. They didn't want to show Jesus did actually fulfill Psalm 110. And I mean, it was very simple. They could have just put that vowel marking there and said, you see, there we go, it's Adonai, it's not Adonai.
Mm-hmm.
Very simple. And that's why you only find it there and nowhere else, because it's a bit more difficult to stick that in somewhere else where the context is more apparent.
Right. And even the Aramaic, you have the Targum, which is explaining the Hebrew. It explains what it's saying, even has the Lord said to his word. Now we understand the word as being, of course, Jesus in the Old Testament. He's the word who became flesh. So even they did that in the sense of, in Aramaic, I understand the Lord is speaking to his word. So it's not Adoni, and Sam is going to argue for that to a certain degree. And then, of course, you say, well, it can go either way. But he's trying to impose Luke's view as it's Adoni, it's Adoni. See, you can't read. No, that's not how it reads if you take away the vowel pointings, that is not why they put it there to show Adoni as his Messiah. It was Adoni as somebody else. So it doesn't work.
Exactly.
You see what a bad argument it is? You understand why? Don't argue like this. You're going to embarrass yourselves. And let's look at the Greek. You understand what I'm trying to teach you through our mistakes? And you think this guy could accept correction? No, of course, too arrogant and proud. God bless him to be humble and keep me humble and pure. Here it is. Let's see what it says. Himself, David said, by the Spirit Holy said, Kyrios to Kyrio mu. Even when Mark translates our Lord's words, he uses what? The dative. To Kyrio mu.
But weren't you reading Matthew?
Yes, that's the other thing. I was referencing Matthew, not Mark. And that's why I say he puts me at Mark, and I'm not there. I'm at Matthew. And then he also accuses me of keep saying Jesus speaking Aramaic. I never said that. I said Jesus spoke Hebrew. So he misrepresented what I said with Jesus speaking Hebrew, not Aramaic. He keeps saying he agrees Aramaic. And no, I do not. I said Jesus spoke Hebrew. That was his mother tongue. And I did not say what he's accusing me of saying. I'm in Matthew.
See what a bad argument it is? And he's going to hammer this point, go after it, and he's not saying anything. It's an embarrassment. And then not only that,
when Jesus references something, I'm looking at.
Why limit it to the Psalms? Why are you saying the Psalms? Well, number one, David wrote in Hebrew. He didn't write in Greek. And number two, even the Greek of Psalm 110 doesn't call Messiah Kyrion. So according to your logic, David never used Kyrion for Messiah in the Greek Psalms. But you're appealing to Jesus. But Jesus didn't speak it in Greek. He would have spoke Aramaic. And then Mark, Matthew, Luke are translating in Greek. What a terribly, stupidly bad argument.
He misrepresented everything that I. First of all, not Mark. I didn't say Aramaic. I said Hebrew. Why am I limiting it to only the book of Psalms? Because that is what Jesus is referencing. He's not referencing the Old Testament in general. He's referencing the book of Psalms, a specific passage. And I said, this is how it's consistently used this way in accordance with the rest of the Psalms. Right?
Yeah. I mean, if he's referencing Psalm 110, that's what you're going to be talking about. You're not going to be talking about a total different Psalm.
Right. And I'm not going to be, not even a Psalm. He's saying why limit it to the Psalms. Otherwise, going out into Genesis or Exodus or anywhere else.
The Synoptics. And the quote is based on the Psalms in the Synoptics. That's what you're trying to get through to.
And that's the other thing is I'm dealing with the Greek Synoptics, Jesus speaking Hebrew, but we have the Greek translation. We have to go to the Psalms as the Septuagint and the Hebrew. Yes, we know David wrote in Hebrew. I mean, he keeps acting like we don't know this. But because we're dealing with Greek Synoptics and Luke, who believes truly that the New Testament has the was divinely inspired in the Greek translation, all this stuff, and so they utilize the Septuagint a lot. I'm trying to get his point against him with the Septuagint and the Hebrew, and Sam is just completely ignoring all that and accusing me of things I'm not even doing.
Yeah, he's making up a straw man to burn that you didn't bring up.
Right, exactly. He's going to continue to do that.
And he spends his whole time on this.
At the Old Testament, how it was understood. They didn't have a New Testament. The Synoptics didn't.
Now, do you remember the timestamp? I think I messed up. Let's go here.
And by the way, where he just stopped, you were actually explaining.
Good to go.
It was Hebrew.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. What you just said.
So if David
No,
only says my Lord to the Messiah one time, but every other time.
the brother, it doesn't help his case. Calling someone Kyrion is simply the word Kyrios, Lord, but in the accusative case. That's what I just said. Why say Kyrion? Why not broaden and say, does the word Kyrios, is that used for others besides Yahweh? Yes. But is it used for others besides Yahweh in the Psalm? Why limit it to the Psalm? Why limit it to the Psalm? Because number one, according to your logic, the word Kyrion is not even used of Messiah in Psalm 110. So it's
And I never claimed it was used in the Psalm of 110. That's the point. I never said. I said Jesus refers to that title, Lord. Grammatically, that's irrelevant. But what is the Lord there? Is that Adonai, Yahweh, or just simply Master? That was the whole point. Before quoting Psalm 110:1, which then we can determine if it is Adonai there or simply just Adoni, Lord or Master. That's why I did that. I wasn't trying to equate the two and then simply say, like Sam said, oh, why is he using that if it's not even here? And he admits not, because that's not my argument. My argument is declaring that Jesus would have said in the Spirit called him Adonai or Yahweh before referencing Psalm 110:1 to affirm that David was saying the same thing.
And notice he hasn't actually gone against what Luke is doing and saying, yeah, Luke's not even trying to attempt to answer you or anything. He's just specifically going at it against you.
Right.
And not really listening to what you're saying.
No, I think it's really over his head. It really is. I think it's completely over his head. And I think
because even Donnie got it. I mean, you could see.
Yeah, Donnie got it because I've talked to him afterward, and he did.
Yeah.
He understood the argument. He knew that Luke was trying to avoid the conclusion that I was making to try to get him to do. That's why Donnie kept conflating it too and say, "Well, it's Adonai, it's Adonai." That wasn't the argument. I'm not referring to Psalm 110:1 yet. I'm referring to what Jesus says David called him from the Greek Synoptics versus the Greek Septuagint and the Hebrew. I'm trying to tie it all together in all the languages. So that's what I'm trying to. Sam is not getting.
It's not even used for Messiah. Why are you asking him to show you where the word Kyrion is used for someone other than Yahweh in the Psalter when you admit that David himself wrote in Hebrew? And secondly, the Greek of Psalm 110:1 does not use even Kyrion.
Because Jesus said to David in the Spirit called him Lord, and we're trying to determine what that Lord is. That's why before quoting Psalm 110:1.
Do you guys understand the problem with this argument? Did everyone understand the problem with the argument before I move on? Let him finish. Because we're going to end it with this mistake, and then in part 2, we'll go through more. All right. Watch how he's going to keep hammering this point.
He says, my Lord to Yahweh himself.
Well,
That wouldn't be a contradiction.
Well,
It
let me
would
help
just
you.
be an exception to his
right.
pattern.
Well, that's not what David said. What said Jesus didn't quote before Jesus quotes Psalm 110:1. Before he makes the exact quote, he says David in the Spirit calls him Lord, not my Lord, Lord. Greek kurion, which is equivalent to in the Hebrew of the Book of Psalms by David as Adonai or Yahweh.
So,
Or even Adoni.
No, it's not. That's
No,
the point.
you can't. You can't say
That was my point right there, where Sam said, or Adoni. No, it's not. Adoni is used one time in the entire Book of Psalms. It's only used right there for a different form grammatically, of course, in that Psalm 110:1. The kurion is not used as Adoni anywhere in the Book of Psalms. It's grammatically only used for Adonai or Yahweh in the whole entire Book of Psalms. So that's my point, is that he conflated it, or Adoni. No, it's not. It's not. Adoni is used one time in a different form. Of course, grammatically, Hebrew, there's no vowel pointing. So again, he's trying to support Luke as Adoni, and it's not. When the evidence comes out, it should never be used as Adoni, because the Jews misrepresented it as somebody else.
Yeah, it's taking the divinity away. It's exactly that. And
Yeah.
Sam is fighting for that argument, which is I finding very weird.
Yeah, because I would think Sam would say the same thing. Was saying it should not be Adoni. It's wrong. It's a commentary, like every scholar understands, and that the Nikud comes later because how they wanted to portray somebody else and not the Messiah.
And that's the thing. It's quite a well-known scholarly thing that's been spoken about it. So I don't know why he doesn't know this. And this is the issue like I have with, for instance, Dustin Smith, where he misrepresents it constantly. It's the same thing. Just totally ignoring all the
and the fact is we have Adonai being translated in the Septuagint as Kiriumu. Kiriumu. More times than Adoni there. One time there, and about 3 or maybe 4 times where Adonai is translated as Kiriosmu, my Lord. My Lord. So it outweighs the fact that you have other passages where David spoke Adonai and it was translated as Kiriosmu, the same way in Psalm 110:1 grammatically, more than this one place where Adonai is inserted in there by the scribe and with a vowel pointing.
Yeah.
I mean, that alone, that's why in verse 5 it's Adonai is at your right hand, because that's how David wrote when he put Ladonai. He used it 3 or 4 other times exactly like that. Never Ladoni outside of Psalm 110:1. Never. Which tells you the scribes who translate it that way within the Nikud are using it for a biased understanding of not the Messiah, getting away from the Christians who were using it.
Yeah, because that was the argument used by the Christians for it being the Messiah.
Yeah, because Psalm 110:1 is the most quoted and referenced and quoted verse in the entire New Testament. More than any other verse from the Hebrew scriptures of the Old Testament, that one verse is used primarily, referenced and quoted more than any other verse. That's why it's so important.
Right? Right, Adoni as well.
No.
But nonetheless, let's go.
If I call Jesus my Lord, I am calling him Lord.
Yeah.
That's not what Jesus said, David said before that. I'm saying
Jesus didn't speak Greek, buddy. Do you
said,
see how bad that argument? The guy is right. Remember, don't hate
No, he's not
the
right.
position. So
yeah, he's not right at all. That's my point. It's a different. Yes, I mean, Sam is falling for Luke's own, trying to modernize. You should use the my husband, and husband. Not when you have a specific way of saying a standard divinity clause or divinity in Hebrew versus a divine title versus a non-divine title. 2 different things. Which is he's only trying to affirm Luke's position when Luke is not doesn't want to address it because he knows what's coming.
strongly that you will argue against a point even when the point is right. The guy is right. You can destroy Unitarianism by other arguments. He's right to say my husband means
Already
husband.
destroyed.
Yeah.
He goes, no, but Jesus did not speak these words in Greek, El Garza.
Well, here's the point. My husband, again, this is conflating 2 different things. If your forget the husband, because that's a bad, to me, that's a bad argument, because we're not talking about a husband role title here, or even a master lord title like a servant or king would be using for himself. We're talking about divine name. So a divine title only used for God and God alone, not a husband to my husband. That would be like the Adoni, Lord, where it's generically used, right? But in this case, we're talking about a divine title, Adonai, never used for anybody else but God. The divine name, Yahweh, only used for God. That's what we're addressing here, not Lord, Master, Lord, Master. That is not what we're talking about. So either Jesus is using the divine title for himself through David, or he's not and using Lord, Master generically, like in Psalm 110:1.
And that's why Luke is specifically saying, no, it just means Lord. If I say Lord, it just means Lord, because he knows he cannot answer this, because if he's going to answer it, he doesn't have an argument. So no, he's definitely wrong.
Right. So my husband and my relates to the Greek word, but you can't use that for the Hebrew, because if it is literally Adonai, you cannot change that back to a Lord Master type of understanding, because it's only used, and it's a plural, my lords, for Yahweh himself, never for anybody else, or if it's even Yahweh. So that's my point. Is I'm trying to argue for that position, that this is a divine name and title, not a generic form, whether it's Greek or even the Hebrew sense of Adon or Adoni.
Yeah, and I mean, based on the argument of the synoptics, you're just showing, look, at Matthew is literally quoting it in being divine. So therefore, the argument, is Jesus being called God in the synoptics? It's a resounding yes.
Right. That's the point of the whole discussion.
And you're going to see the contradiction later, where when he appeals to the Greek of the synoptics, he's going to appeal to Jesus's original language, what Jesus said in the original language he spoke. Full of contradiction. The guy's terrible. He's not a great debater. He's not. Go watch him. Very soft, not that good. Not that bright. Being honest.
You got to read the passage before.
Yeah, I'm reading it. So it says, how is it then that David in the Spirit calls him Lord?
Right there.
Saying,
Stop it
the
right
Lord
there.
said to
hold
my
on,
Lord.
Hold on. Before, that's my point.
Lord.
Right.
That word Lord is not my Lord in the Greek. It is Lord, Kurion, which is only used in the book of Psalms as David's writing for either Yahweh or Adonai. So before Jesus actually quotes Psalm 110, which is my Lord, which is even Adonai is my Lord, he calls him Kurion, Lord, not my Lord, Lord right there. So that Lord there, can you explain why, or can you show me anywhere that Jesus is referencing David saying that is referred to anyone other than Adonai Yahweh in the book of Psalms that's referenced by Jesus?
Why would he need to show you the word Kyrion used in the Greek Psalter for someone other than Yahweh when David wrote in Hebrew? And according to your logic, Jesus didn't say these words in Greek. He would have said it in Aramaic, and it's translated in Greek. And secondly,
this stuff before going to second.
You said Hebrew, not Aramaic.
I know. And the point again is something he's just not getting it. I don't understand. Yes, I want him to show me, because that Lord there, how is that Lord being used in the entire book of Psalms in the Septuagint? And then you can retranslate that back into the Hebrew and say, there is Adonai Yahweh, no one else. No one else. So Jesus is literally saying Hebrew, Adonai, or the divine name, not Lord generically. Anyway, that's why I say what I said, which again, Sam does not understand. So, and I never say Aramaic. I say Hebrew. Luke says Aramaic, like Aramaic or Hebrew, and I confirm no, it's Hebrew. And I do that even in the closing and even in the Q&A.
By the way, have you still got an answer to this though from Luke till this day?
No, none. You can watch the whole debate. I had to move on because it was taking too much time, and he did not want to concede. And he didn't. So I had to move on from there. I had let's just move on. I moved on to the vocative form of Lord in the Greek, and how it's used in the Septuagint and in the Hebrew only for Yahweh himself. And that's it.
Because if it was my Lord and not just Lord, you wouldn't have a case. But because it's just simply Lord, it totally goes against what Luke is saying.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just trying to hold him on to that and say, well, look what it's saying. Look what the Hebrew's telling you what it is. That word, Kurion, is Adonai. It's Yahweh.
Right.
It's as simple as that.
Right. And that's why he utilizes Psalm 110:1. The Lord said to Adonai. Because it's still translated that way as Kyrios Mu in the Greek, and it's Adonai in the Hebrew. Without taking away the vowel pointings, I can say Ladonai. And that's the point, because that's what Jesus sets up, I believe, from the synoptics and the translation of the Greek and even the Hebrew words that Jesus said. But it's terrible.
the very fact that the Greek of Psalm 110 says to Kyrio mu, using the word Lord in the indirect object case, means that Kyrion is used for David's Lord, which in Greek is not Kyrion, it's to Kyrio mu. You understand? The guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
Even that was dishonest again.
It is. I don't know what I'm talking about. Again, he doesn't know me. I wrote a whole master's thesis on this verse. I know what it's saying, and I know what I'm arguing for. And I'm saying even Adonai is Kyrios mu in the Greek. in the Septuagint. It's the same. It's used that way more times in this one place for Adoni there, anywhere else, and from translated back into the Greek. So this is why he's being completely not honest with it, or he's just not understanding his own words, because he's misrepresenting what I'm saying, or even my whole argument. Right?
He doesn't have an argument. He doesn't actually have anything to argue against. He's just repeating himself.
Yeah. And that's my point was, and I didn't get a chance to make because the time was allotted. But the point is, even Adonai is translated in the Septuagint more times as Kyrios Mu than that one time used by the scribe using Adonai, which shows you that it should have been Adonai there, based even on the Greek translation's usage and how it's used more times that way. So.
You understand? He doesn't know what he's talking about. It's an embarrassment. And then when you try to correct him, he gets angry and says, you don't understand my argument. I said, your arrogance shines through in the comment section. I'm sure.
The funny thing is, how do you read anger in a text or in a message? I didn't verbally speak to him. I was actually just pointing out first this, first that. He assumed I was being angry. I wasn't angry.
You should actually show the comment, because I went through the comment today. And I can't see where you were angry or triggered on it. You were just trying to simply explain your argument to him.
Right. And let me see if I can find it, because I simply was pointing out first, and because he just went off and just called me arrogant. It was just like, you're arrogant. I'm like, okay, well, okay.
But the thing is, he comes in hot. He literally comes in hot saying, you're embarrassing us. You know, you shouldn't debate.
And I don't even know the guy.
Yeah. And then you're just responding like, okay, let me try and explain the argument to you. That's it. So, I don't know.
So let me see if I can find it here, because, okay. Let me see here. So, let me see if I can share this tab here. Did it come out?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, good. So here's his very first comment. It's sad that you don't see how you contradict yourself and actually embarrassing a Trinitarian side position. You made your entire case on the Greek use of the term for Lord, Kyrion, and then revert back to the original language of Jesus when Luke called you out about the Greek of the Synoptics. You really need to humble and stop debating. This is not your calling, and don't delete my comments since I cannot find the last comment I posted. So I said, let's be clear, Sam. First, I never delete comments, so you're probably got held by YouTube. Secondly, the fact that you can't understand my argument referring to the Greek and how it used in the book of Psalms by David in the Hebrew shows that it's only used for the divine name or Adonai. The fact that you can't understand the argument shows that you're probably not in a position to challenge my argument. Maybe you should probably learn the language and grammatically and how it is used in relation to a particular Greek word found in the book of Psalms by David. It appears you're very ignorant of this, so no, I will not stop debating because I know exactly what I'm talking about based on the scholarship. Lastly, I reflected back to the Hebrew because we're discussing the language that Jesus spoke, which is not Greek. I'm not sure if you understand that, Sam. Maybe you need to humble yourself because you're not always correct and you don't know what you're talking about in this case. Now, that's a response because of what he said. I took offense to that first part of saying, look, he just said, it's sad. He just starts off. He didn't, try to talk. The first time I ever had a conversation with him ever. This is the first time I ever had a conversation with him. This is how he starts a very first time conversation.
But I find it also quite ironic that in your commentary you're literally saying Jesus spoke in Hebrew.
Right.
And what's the straw man he's presenting on the video? You're saying Jesus speaking in Greek.
Exactly. And I made it clear in my presentation, which he didn't show, that the scribe translating. We talked about the synoptics. The synoptics are a translation of the words of Jesus in Hebrew. I made that clear to Luke and later on in my debate, because Luke did try to appeal to the Greek, and I made it clear it was that Jesus wasn't speaking Greek. It's a translation of his words. He spoke in Hebrew. And so this is part of the debate and the argument that Luke was trying to bring up. But again, he just says your arrogance shines through wonderfully. It seems the only one who understands your argument is you, which again raises the question, why are you debating it? Again, he's trying to represent every single person who heard my debate as if they think the way he does.
I don't understand what's going on. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, it's amazing to me that's what he's doing there, in reflection of trying to make it sound like I don't know what I'm talking about. Stop debating. I think it's just went over his head. The whole thing just went over his head. And I think he was trying to really overthink this whole thing rather than trying to, like you said, just have me explain it to go on there and I'll explain my argument. And you misrepresent me saying Aramaic. I never say Aramaic. I say Hebrew. I transition back from the Hebrew and the Septuagint to the Greek because we're like you said, the synoptics, and we're dealing with both languages. So we're dealing with everything here, not just one.
Plain.
Let's see.
I don't want to waste time. When a guy doubles down, ignore him. Right? Do not, answer a fool according to his folly. Let him return to his vomit. May God rebuke and repent and have mercy on him and me.
So there again, there's the insult. Again, more insult. Applying verses, dog going back to, I mean, those verses are speaking about unbelievers, by the way, in the context of Matthew. Don't catch a pearls with signs. Those are talking about the unbelieving Jewish leaders. That are there. So he's actually insulting me with verses that deal with unbelievers. So, it's.
I also find it weird that he keeps insulting you as if you're there rebutting him or something.
Exactly.
I mean, he's watching a debate that you had. That what you said is already said. It's not going to change whatever he says in his life. So it's not like you can rebut anything he says. So
and
I
he's
find really
insulting
odd
me.
that he keeps,
He insults me like if I'm having a debate with him.
Doesn't
kind of
make
like
sense.
what happened with you. Like with you made a comment. So he's insulting you as because you're talking to him, but I'm not even there. So
it's something.
Yeah, so here's an interesting comment I want to bring up. Jesus never spoke Hebrew. He spoke the language of the Hebrew, which is Aramaic. There was no Hebrew until the Codex Aleppo, Codex Leningrad, and Codex Sasso. The name of Jesus is Emmanuel. No, that's not true. Again, this is not the concept. The early church fathers, there's words in the Greek and Latin and so forth you can use where we have the word for Aramaic or Syriac, Seraces, Evrit in Hebrew, or even Hebraces in Greek. They know the distinctions between them. So Seraces or Hebraces, they know. So we know from the first 1,000 years of the early church fathers' testimony that Jesus spoke Hebrew. Some of the Gospels, like Matthew, were written in Hebrew. We have plenty of evidence for that historically. The Jews' scholarship in Israel know this. This is completely untrue. Later on, in the reformers, John Calvin and others, they switched Aramaic to Hebrew. So Calvin and others, and then even in the Enlightenment period, said if you see Hebrew, that means it's the Syriac Aramaic portion. That comes later by the Reformation. So that's a later rendition where they tried to equate Aramaic with Hebrew. And that is not what the early church fathers believed.
I mean, let's even look at the Dead Sea Scrolls, for instance.
Yeah.
It's way before the Codex Aleppo. That's mostly written in Hebrew.
Yeah, exactly. And the funny thing is that when you have, even like I said, one of the latest the church father issue dad even makes it comment, says, and he's translating, he's commenting, making a commentary in Aramaic, Syriac Aramaic, and he references Matthew that he wrote in Hebrew, not Syriac Aramaic, and that was well known and understood. So even issue dad we're looking at both Hebrew and Aramaic. In commentary writing in Syriac Aramaic, he even says that Matthew wrote in Hebrew, and even John uses Hebrew in Bereshit instead of the Aramaic version of it. So even he, in the latest early church father, understands that. So that, again, this comment is completely wrong. There is a scholarship on. I wrote a whole book on this. It took me over 5 years to write The Search for the Language of the New Testament, where I cite over 70 scholars on this. Showing that very thing. So it's not something I'm just off the cuff saying. It's in a 5-work book I wrote a couple years ago. So, all right, but let's continue.
He goes, you don't understand. I go, well, that's all the more proof you shouldn't be debating. If we all don't see your point and see how bad it is, Trinitarians are on your side and those are not. That means you suck.
Again, we all don't understand. We all. The whole umbrella category of we all. So he's representing everybody who watches my debate as a Christian that they don't understand. That's
terrible communicator. Yeah, exactly. See? Now, let me show it to you again, just in case you missed it. Keep the timestamp, 1 hour, 5 minutes,
Oh,
7
here you
second
go. How I
mark.
do it
Remind
there.
me. Here, let me show it to you again.
He's gonna
When,
go- No, that's a good same thing.
what are you talking about?
Just mark again.
How does this prove your case?
Yeah,
Po, kirio,
he's
hu, meaning that
again what I said.
kiriyun and kiriyun
They
attack
didn't have a New Testament.
touching you.
It's not confusing at all if you read it like you said from the language.
We did.
So in the text that we're talking about, Matthew 22:44, if anyone wants to follow along.
Or even Mark or Luke as well. They're the same
So
passage.
The Lord said to my Lord. The first Lord is Yahweh.
Yeah.
The second Lord is Jesus. Yahweh said to Ladoni, to
Ladon.
my Lord.
That's Hebrew. He gave you the Hebrew. Gave him the right in Greek. Ladoni.
In the Hebrew, and it's just kurios mu in the Greek. My Lord, sit at my right hand until I put my. So Yahweh is exalting Jesus. Sit at my right hand. That's what's going on. There's nothing confusing.
Okay, but
He's right.
well, it's
See,
not
this is again-
confusing at all if you read it like you said from the language. First of all, it's not Adoni. We don't know that. That's only by commentator.
No, it is Adoni.
See how he stopped me there? And then
He doesn't correct him, but he tries to correct
Yeah.
you.
he does.
I'm not
He
gonna-
ignored what I said and he stopped me on that point, so he can say
As you
no.
try
It is Adoni. Watch, he's gonna say it right here.
Uh-huh.
Because the diacritical markings were added 500 years after Christ, so it does say Adoni. So because
Yeah, not 500 years actually. A lot. It's like 9th century, pretty much. It was composed and completed. But again, it's commentary vowel pointing for a reason. That was my point. It was you cannot say Adoni, and I was saying it could be Adonai because we know again from the Greek it's translated Kyrios mu Adonai, as well as the reason behind the Jews put it there does not fit a messianic verse. Period. They'll tell you that until much later. So their earliest understanding is this is not about the Messiah. Well, but here's what he says.
because the guy's sloppy,
I'm
he's not a
sorry.
good communicator, and he even contradicts himself. When he was asked, was Jesus tempted by Satan? You know what he said? Yeah, because he wasn't fully God. I'm going to show you that.
Oh yeah.
I remember listening to this morning as well, and I'm thinking, you didn't word it correctly, I would say, but he was totally misrepresenting what you
Okay.
meant.
So
You know what I mean?
yeah, let me clarify because he's only going to play that snippet there,
Mhm.
and that's it. He doesn't give you the whole context. Luke trying to use two different verses to show the Unitarian position is God can't be tempted, Jesus is tempted, therefore he's not God.
Mhm.
God can't die, therefore Jesus died, Jesus is not God. So his argument is, he can't be God because God can't die and God can't be tempted.
Yeah.
So the point was, and this is where even Sam calls me a heretic for saying this, fully
man.
God, and I explained it, which Sam never showed. I explained what not being fully God meant. I said in the other portion of Luke's question, fully God in the sense of like the Father in his full divine spirit nature, because Jesus is in another nature. He's God and man. He's
So
not
hypostasis.
right. He's not fully God like the Father and the Spirit is, because he has a second nature. He put on flesh. Therefore, in that sense, fully God, meaning he's not existing outside of his flesh that he put on as fully God.
And
He
this is what
lived-
Sam's supposed to understand as well, because he understands Jesus humbled himself and became
Yes.
a man.
Yes, and he put on flesh and he laid aside his privileges. He emptied himself. And when I say laid his privileges aside, Sam, that's a heresy. That's that's what the Greek says in Philippians. This is why anybody should ask Sam, is Jesus fully God? Yes. Then why didn't he know the day of the hour? If he's fully God, he should automatically know that. Why did he not know the day of the hour? Why did he have to be made Lord and God again or given the divine name if he's already fully God? Because he gave him he laid aside his privileges, leaving that status and taking on another nature of flesh and becoming the God man in the sense that he was not fully God in the sense like God the Father and the Spirit. Without, I'm saying he didn't have any, he had limitations.
Yeah, that's why the Father gave him authority. That's why the Father
Right.
gave him. That's why when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane, he's like, not my will, but your will, Father.
Right.
It's because he humbled himself as a servant.
So Sam should see, hey, Sam, is Jesus fully God? Yes. Then why was he had to be given anything? Why was he given authority? Why, if he's fully God, he should not have been given authority. He should not have to ask for anything. He should know the day of the hour. What does that mean? He knows what it means.
And that's why Colossians 2 is also so important. We're saying he's in God it fully. Okay, it doesn't mean he is fully God. It means he's fully God in his human body.
Right. It's not exactly all the fullness of deity in bodily form. In other words, if he was not in his body, he is fully God 100% with no limitations, just like the Father and the Spirit. But because he laid aside his privileges and took the form of a slave, then that means he is, he deliberately laid aside certain things that he cannot, that he's relying strictly on the Father as an example for us to rely on the Father the same way. So we look to the Father because we're not God. He laid aside that. So when I said fully God, he knows what I'm saying.
But that's why Jesus says, my God and your God.
Exactly.
Because he's man.
Exactly. He has a human form that represents now that the Messiah in flesh as a God can say those things because he has that nature. That's why he knows why I said fully God. He didn't show the argument where I explained what fully God I was. Right. He cut it off there and he calls me a heretic at the end because I said he's not fully God in the sense of like the Father without in his spirit nature only.
Yeah.
He's not fully God in that sense because he took on another nature and laid aside certain things that he wasn't going to do as being God. Now, that's exactly what I explained to Luke, and he never showed that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Luke's a Unitarian. He doesn't believe Jesus is God. So you have to lay it out in that context so he understands what you mean.
Because Luke's argument is, if God can't die, Jesus died, he's not God. Exactly. And I said, well, yeah, he's not fully God in the sense like the Father or the Spirit. He has a body now. It's limited. And I gave an example. Let's say if I own a company and I have two partners, we're co-equal partners to a company, to a business, right? There's three of us. And I decide one day, you know what? I'm going to go down there, put on an employee's uniform. I'm going to be an employee and work as an employee for a whole week. I'm going to be an employee. I'm going to work there. I'm going to do what they do. So I'm going to go into that position, that role now. And I'm going to be an employee for a whole week. That means I can't act as a boss anymore. I'm going
giving your authority away.
Yeah, I'm going to rely on the other bosses to do the job, and I'm gonna have to go just like I'm gonna be an employee 100% that way as well. And I'm gonna work as that. I'm not gonna put out my privileges, being, hey, I'm the boss, and I'm also no. I'm gonna lay that aside. Did I freeze?
No. Well, yeah. Wait, you are frozen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of weird.
That's a cool pose, though.
I know. I can see myself frozen. Let me see if I can put it back. That's kind of weird.
By the way, guys, hit the likes, share the show, support El Garza, man.
Yeah,
come on, guys.
Appreciate it. Can you still hear me though?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so maybe it's something with my camera here, but
internet maybe.
Yeah, but my point was, and I'll hopefully get back on, is that I'm laying aside my ownership boss privileges, and I'm strictly working as an employee. That doesn't mean I'm not still the boss technically, but I'm not 100% the boss or 100% or fully the boss because I'm now in another role or capacity, and I laid that aside.
Yeah, you're not practicing your authority.
Right, exactly. I laid that aside. That's what I meant, and he doesn't show that.
Oh, he dropped now. Totally.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, that he doesn't show that I actually explain that in the text, because I did explain that to Luke, because Luke was trying to trap me with the whole if God can't do this, then he's not God. So the fully God comment is dealing with laying aside his privileges. Is what Philippians says and Paul says, and that's why, like you said, he has to be given these privileges. Given authority, say my God, all these things, because he's in another capacity as putting on the flesh. So now what happened to my camera here?
No idea. It's totally gone. I don't think you maybe have to drop and come back in or something.
Well, I did remove it, and I tried to. Let me see. Let me check my camera here. It's kind of weird. Let me see. Visuals. Edit mic. Let me see.
I see Bobby still arguing for Aramaic.
Yeah.
Crazy.
That's not the scholarly consensus. Let me see if I may
Oh,
switch it back this way. Can I
There we go.
here? Wait, that's
There.
my computer
Which other one?
camera.
Oh, there it's
Yeah.
back. Yeah, it's working.
Yeah, let me see if I can go. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Yeah, it's working. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So yeah. So Bobby's still arguing for the again. I would definitely encourage Bobby to pick up my book because Ceresis, and there's no word for Aramaic in the Greek. Ceresis, Syriac is the word used in Greek. Ceresis, Hebresis, that is in fact a term that's understood in the scriptures as well as outside that, because it's always Hebresis or Evrit for Hebrew. So, and that's why Paul spoke in the Greek, because Paul was speaking to his people in Evrit, Hebrew, or in the Greek Hebresis, not Aramaic. Syraces or Syriac is what the term comes from. So, and there's go ahead.
I think the Aramaic was like the minimal language of the day there. It was mostly Greek and Hebrew.
Right. And Aramaic that's why even on the cross, it was Greek, Latin, and Hebrew, not Syraces, which could have been used in the Greek, the Syriac form. But in every early church father I know makes a distinction between the Hebrew and even going down later to the Syriac or the Aramaic. They're not the same, and there was a clear distinction. We even have copies of the New Testament going 2nd, 3rd century fragments in Syriac Aramaic, the Palestinian at that time. So we know from the Dead Sea Scrolls, Aramaic, Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek, which is found also in the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Yeah.
But let's do this, because I want to push forward to that. I think he's gonna repeat himself here a lot, but I want to push the point to the fact where he calls me a heretic for saying Jesus is not fully God in the argument.
He wasn't fully God. He's a terrible communicator. He sucks. He embarrassed himself to the point where he's going to espouse heresy. I'm going to show it to you. It does say Adoni. What he should have said is, though the Masoretic manuscripts, the Masoretic text, where the Masoretes added the vowel markings, the diacritical markings to pronounce the vowels, marked it as Adoni, that doesn't mean they're right.
See, here's the point. He's doing a teaching lesson. I'm doing a debate. Okay, I have a limited time. I'm trying to get Luke to admit something here. I don't have time to say, Luke, let me just give you a teaching lesson on how this works, and let me just spend my time. That's not what the debate goes. That's why I had a problem with Luke saying, are you going to ask a question? Or are you going to make a statement? Because we're supposed to be dialoguing conversation. I don't know, he should know better that in a debate, you don't go off and just start going into a whole teaching lesson. It's understood that these are, that's why I said, in the video, I said, these are commentary points. I don't have to go into a whole lesson. If you don't know that, then you should probably go look it up, because the only reason we have it there is because they put it as a commentary.
But that's like when you usually debate someone. That's why you usually ask them, do you understand what I'm saying? So you would know if they have the common knowledge of it. If they don't, it's like, okay, that's fine. Let's move on to something else.
Right. For
clarification. You
clarification.
under the understanding that Luke understands what's going on here. So he has the knowledge.
Exactly. And Luke does. He knows that. He even admitted it. He even admitted that he knows that. So I don't have to go through a whole lesson. Like, he wants me to word it where like I'm giving a lesson. If I'm doing a lesson, fine. Yeah, I'll do it that way. But this is the debate. We're going back and forth. We're trying to make a point. It's not like, hey, Luke, give me 2 minutes to make a presentation on this Masoretic vowel pointing Nikud type deal while you sit and listen to me. That doesn't fly. But here, I'm going to move forward a little bit here.
It could just as well be Adonai, but they marked it as Adonai, did it with divinity against us and shame us and discredit our witness.
Oh, here's where
you see the difference here?
Yeah, this is when I actually came in.
Yeah, let me see.
What they would do.
Yeah.
Let me let you in on a secret what Christian scribes would do. Check it up. We see a practice done by Christian scribes.
Let's go here.
Take it down. About the wedding ceremony. He came to my live stream of last week and said, why did you think it was a weak argument? I go, here are the reasons. Do your homework. He did his homework. He accepts correction. You see it? See? Here he is. He accepts correction. And he says, you're right. There's not enough evidence. It was a bad argument. You see? When you humble yourself,
There's a bad argument. I never said it was a bad argument, though. I just said I haven't found enough evidence to
Right.
support it.
Right.
That's
But he takes it as a bad argument. Anything that is not in line with what he's thinking is a bad argument, period.
Because I did find evidence for it. I just didn't find enough evidence.
Right.
That's
Exactly. And that's but again, that's how he projects it as it's just a bad argument. That's just how it is. But
See that? See that right there? He didn't get angry. He didn't flip. He didn't stone me. He didn't cuss me out. He didn't say, see,
neither did I.
David was right about you. No one can work with you. He said, wow, thank you, because he was refuting the Unitarian Dustin Smith. Well, he was refuting the Unitarian against us and shame us and discredit our witness. You see the difference here, El Garza? Swallow your pride, big boy.
Yeah, when I heard this, was like,
You're not as
Huh?
when I heard this and saying, you see, this is El Garza, because I just came in here.
I know.
I don't know,
He's
it's like,
gonna
what?
you are, brother.
insult me
Arrogant,
again.
yes, but not that smart.
Nothing.
So now, if you go back to this, I hope you're not bored with this. Hit it with divinity. So instead of spelling out
So he's going into the sacred
1
name.
hour, 5 minute, 59 seconds.
So briefly, just people know, and I'm not going to play the whole thing with the sacred name thing, but I point out to Luke the sacred name that the early church fathers, the Greek translations, they use the sacred name in the Old Testament as well as in the New Testament to show that they're speaking of a divine name or title like either Adonai or Yahweh. So therefore, in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, that sacred name abbreviation in the Greek is found there in that translation for Jesus calling him Lord. It's abbreviated as well as in Psalms in the quotation. So they have it there because they're recognizing that that is not. Now, what Sam will point out, and he did, is that abbreviation was used for Mary and for other things, but that came later. The earliest texts that we have only show it typically for Jesus, the name Jesus, for Messiah or Christ, for Lord and God, for Theos and Kuria. It was 4. Later scribes, when they were copying, decided around the 5th, 6th century, started to add it to like Holy Spirit, to Mary, or to something else. So later scribes decided to incorporate it more and more and more. But we only in the earliest manuscripts from the first 200-300 years, we have it only really in 4 of the titles. And so even in the codexes we have, I pointed out that the Christian writers obviously understood this to be a divine name, like either Adonai or the Yahweh, because they're abbreviating it, and even did it in Psalms and in the quotation of Psalms in the Gospels. So they understood that.
And that's why today we understand Kurios as Adonai,
Mhm.
Yahweh Adonai. It's
Exactly. Or yeah, and so that was my point with the sacred, which he bashes me using it. Oh, but those are Christian. I go, yeah, that's evidence that Christians believe that was a divine. Adonai is never abbreviated, even in, I think it's in the Q&A, one person asked a question about, I think it was used in Peter, where it references Abraham, Sarah calling Abraham Lord. And that's not abbreviated, it's spelled out.
It's Adoni.
It's Adoni, exactly. So in the Hebrew, it's Adoni, and the Greek, they understood that's not a sacred name. They didn't abbreviate. And even in the Septuagint and the early church, the Septuagint of the whole Old Testament, I hate to say that, but the Greek translation of the Old Testament never uses Adoni as a sacred name abbreviation by the early church fathers. So that's why I said this. It's evident. He criticizes that, saying, "But that's the Christian church, of course." But that's evidence. That's my point. That is the whole point. You look at all that to see. Yeah,
You're busy debating a specific topic.
exactly. And a specific topic, and I'm asking a specific point, using the evidence to say we don't find it in the Greek. We have the sacred name abbreviation, which puts another weight of evidence on top of it. So it points to Adonai or the divine name.
Yep.
But I'm gonna push past this.
So I don't know what he's talking about. That they abbreviated Kiriyun.
You know what I'm talking about.
They would put a line on top.
Yep.
Your argument, because Jesus would have spoken Aramaic to the Jews,
Nope,
and it would have
not
been.
Aramaic.
It would not have been Kurion. That's
Don't
how
agree with
the
that.
Greek writers or those writing in Greek.
See, again,
Where can he show evidence for that Jesus
Which
would have spoke Aramaic to the Jews?
right, exactly. That's the thing. He's under the Aramaic supremacy position, but there isn't any evidence. We have Gospels of Matthew, over 30 of them, all written in Hebrew. We have, the early church fathers' testimony that Matthew wrote in Hebrew, all the way down to the 9th, 10th century. There's no evidence of that.
All the archaeology even shows that's shown
exactly.
It shows Hebrew.
Exactly. And even Israeli Hebrew scholars today, which I cite in my book, all say that Jesus spoke Hebrew. The mother tongue was Hebrew, not Aramaic. We have more. If you combine from the Dead Sea Scrolls, everything we found from even non-biblical texts, we have more written in Hebrew than Aramaic and Greek combined.
Yep.
So what he's saying is completely untrue academically.
Because Aramaic was actually a dying out language. It was used in, for instance, like Daniel and things, but that was way before Jesus' time.
Right. We do have, like I said, small portions of Daniel, I think, and also of what's the other book? Was it Ezra or another Old Testament book partially written in Aramaic? Yeah, there's two books. No,
it's not Esther.
There's another one besides Daniel, but again, it's sure. Dead Sea Scrolls. The whole thing was all primarily Hebrew. We know this. Yeah. But
rendered what he said.
Let me see. He just said David said first. My point is this: you want to exegete the passage. You're
acting like my Lord is different than Lord.
It
I
is
say
different.
my Lord,
It is.
I am calling that Lord.
It is. The book of Psalms. That was my point. It is if we're talking about the sacred name Adonai Yahweh versus Adoni Lord in that sense. Yes, it is different. That's the whole point. You can't equate. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how in Genesis when it's my Lord, it's Adoni.
Right.
It's what you're trying to make the point, yeah. Abraham was Adoni, my Lord. But in Psalms 110 it was Lord, not my Lord, because it's Kurios.
And Yahweh is called Adonai, my lords, by Abraham and Genesis 15 by the word. And I mean, so yes, there is a huge difference if we're talking about either one. So yes, they are different. That was the whole point. Right, David, it is different. That's my point. That's how you do hermeneutics of biblical exegesis. You take the word kurion. Now remember, Jesus, I said,
I notice dishonesty, and I'm not saying.
See, he stopped me right there when I was going to say Jesus. I think I was going to say Jesus is speaking Hebrew, but he stopped me right there, and he's going to criticize this.
He's deliberately being dishonest. He's just arrogant and thinks he's being a scholar. No, you don't do hermeneutics exegesis by arguing for a translation of an original language, right, into another language. That's not exegesis.
You know what
it is.
This is why, biblical exegesis, which again, I took courses on this: textual criticism, biblical hermeneutics, exegesis. I took all these courses. Yes, you utilize the languages of that time, whether it's the Greek, Hebrew, or even the Aramaic of the New Testament with the Old Testament, and you go through them that way to establish an interpretation or how whatever you're looking for. It's exactly how you do it, and I don't know why. And he's right. He doesn't have any college education. He's never taken a course in this. I don't know where he's getting it from, but that's exactly how you do proper exegesis. Remember, you have to look not only the context, how it's used, the languages, the culture, the background. All of those things are in play with hermeneutics and biblical exegesis.
You always go to the source. That's how it works.
And whatever available sources you have to help support it, even if they are translations, specifically at that time, because we have the Greek and we primarily using the Greek and we have everything else. We do. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's why when you can look at the different Hebrew scrolls that come later as well, it still shows as evidence to the translations that they understood it was Adonai. It's exactly the same.
Exactly.
Because David did not write in Greek.
He
wrote Hebrew, and it's a form of the word Adon. The later Jewish scribes dotted it as Adoni, irrelevant to the fact that whatever it is, it's not Greek.
That's also dishonest, though, because it's saying Adonai. Okay, it doesn't say Adon; it says Adonai, but because of the vowel point, they make it Adoni.
And you have to add. Well, actually, you have to add the yod in there put in the suffix for my, the possessive. It's a different spelling, obviously. And in fact, even in the older in the Dead Sea Scrolls of Psalms, they actually had a vav in there. So it's actually the current is more of a corruption than the original, where Aleph Dalet Vav Nun Yod. Yeah. So, but again, it's relevant because we are looking at whether or not it is Adonai or Adoni, and why did the scribes put it there as such, which I do get into that later in the debate. So, yes, it's very relevant. Like you said, we have to determine, it's not Adon in Psalm, and they had, the suffix changes it. And of course, we're looking at either Adonai or Adoni, which I'm arguing for Adonai based on the evidence. But
so that's not exegesis. Secondly, Jesus would not have spoken Greek here
for anyone else other than Adonai Yahweh. So what Jesus is literally saying, translating back to his language, David in the spirit calls him Adonai or Yahweh. That's how it would have been understood when he.
No, it wouldn't be, because David never wrote Greek, so he never used.
He just ignored what I said.
I still haven't once seen you've ever said David wrote in Greek. Never once.
I know. I never said that, but he ignored what I just said, translating back into Hebrew, the original language. I even say it's amazing that he's not listening.
Use the word kiriyun, and it doesn't follow that if Jesus says David called the Messiah Lord, that kiriyun would have been understood to be a reference to Adonai or Yahweh, because, folks, the Greek of Psalm 110 is in front of their eyes. It says, To Kirio Mu.
And Adonai is translated Kirio Mu, and also La Adonai, to Lord, my Lord, throughout this book of Psalms. He doesn't address that because he doesn't know that. He doesn't know that Adonai is used that way in the Greek.
It's still a mute argument, though. It doesn't change your arguments,
right?
What you're doing at all.
It doesn't. He's fighting it, but he doesn't. He's fighting something he doesn't understand. Even with the translation of Adonai, excuse me, it's still utilized with Kidiomu, to Kidiomu. It can still be utilized that way, and it is in the book of Psalms. The same way as Adoni is. The point is, which is David speaking, Adonai or Adoni? Again, I pointed to the Greek because we have the sacred name abbreviation in Psalm 110:1 for both the divine name and for the second part, which I say is Adonai. It's never used for Adoni, and of course the Hebrew without the vowel pointings, and how it's used in other places by David in the Hebrew as Ladonai, Ladonai. Never Ladoni anywhere else, except how the scribes put it here. So the scribes put that there, Ladoni, but never put it anywhere else, the entire book of Psalms. Never. They put Ladonai, Ladonai, or La Yahweh, La Yahweh, La Yahweh, to Yahweh, to Yahweh. All, even probably almost way more than anything else with the Lamed prefix to. So again, he doesn't know this. This is why I'm saying he's speaking to me as a way of not knowing the argument from my perspective, from academically trying to put. I think if he did, he would maybe back down a few bit about this.
Well, that's why I said that's why you should actually have a discussion with you.
That's why I told him I would gladly come on there. In my comments, which I showed later, I said, if you're going to do a live, like he said in there, I'll be glad to come on. But he didn't respond. He's ignored me. Like he said, after the second time, I ignored him. It's, I don't deal with that. Okay, well, then not going to get resolved.
Not.
Let me go this part. The question is this.
Do you want me to talk or not?
Yeah, no.
That it must fit the pattern. It doesn't need to fit the
Number 3, why are you limiting the data to the Psalms when outside of the Psalms in the Greek, the word the word Kirion is used for David and Saul?
See, here's the other thing. Why am I limiting it to the Psalms when outside of the Psalms, it's you? Because that's not the argument. The argument is Jesus referencing King David speaking about the Messiah as Lord, not in Genesis, not in Deuteronomy, not in 1 Kings, 2 Kings, Sam. Nowhere else are we talking about the word kurion or kurios anywhere else. but how David used it in referencing his own psalm.
Yeah,
That's the point.
It's based on the synoptics. This is the argument.
Exactly.
The debate's about the synoptics, and the synoptics is referencing the Psalms. That's why you got the Psalms. If it was referencing Genesis, you would go to Genesis, but it's not referencing it.
Right. Or if it was referencing anything else, I would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
I would have gone to those passages. But since it's not, I'm staying right there because that's where the case is built on what Jesus is referencing.
Mm-hmm.
For anyone other than Adonai or Yahweh. So there's the simple question was, can you find anywhere in the book of Psalms by David where it shows something other than the divine name or title? And obviously,
I said yes.
No, you can't.
Psalm 110:1.
Now, no, that is not it. Because now in Psalm 110:1, it is my Lord, either Adonai or Adoni. Now
He admits it. Can be Adonai or
I've
Adoni.
always admitted that.
Good.
In the Greek
But I use
and in the
Adonai.
languages, it is not Adoni, it is Adonai. Because the vowel point is
I'm not
don't
avoiding your
exist.
question. Let me answer it for you clearly. If my wife calls me
Here's the husband.
my husband, she's calling me husband. Just because she added my husband,
It's
the
called the red
my in
herring.
front of it doesn't change the definition of the word husband.
He's right.
David calls him
He's right. It's great.
No,
it's
it's
just
a
the
red
position
herring.
of the sentence. You can't spell it Kyrios if it's the object. Accusative. You can't spell it Kyriou, which is the genitive, possessive case, if it's the object. You can't spell it Kyri, direct address vocative,
here,
if
hold
it's the object. You can't spell it Kyrio.
Okay, so sorry.
That's a red herring.
It
It's as simple as that.
It-
He was
because the my husband might only fit if you're defining the term as simply Lord or Master in that sense, like you would. I'm talking about if you call your husband God or
Mhm.
husband, my husband. You can't. It's a false equivalence in the word. It's either Adonai Yahweh, which is only exclusively used for God, or it is a lesser title used typically for humans, kings, and all that. Or
Mhm.
and that's the whole point. So the husband, my husband argument is begging the question if you assume that they're meaning the same thing outside of the divine title. Outside of the divine title.
Context is totally different. Context is totally different.
That's my point is that argument is literally begging the question if I'm going to agree with Luke that his conclusion that that's only used for Lord and Master in a very general sense and not for a
Because-
divine name or title.
Because if you think about it this way, if you say my husband, okay, it gives connotation to, okay, it's your husband. But if you just say husband, it doesn't give context to it's whose husband,
Right.
okay? So when it comes to the word kurion, which is just Lord, you know it's Yahweh. It's Lord. When you say my Lord, that means it's my, my master. It could be, it's specific to me. But when it's just Lord, it's everybody's Lord, Yahweh. That's
Yeah,
the point
And
you're
that's
trying
the
to make.
point I'm trying to make is it used for Yahweh or Adonai in that sense because kurion can be used for both, but in the text here, husband, like you said, it's general as in husband. Whose husband? My husband. Okay, but is it my God, my Lord in the sense of my God only, my Yahweh only, or is it speaking of a generic term that doesn't fit? And that's why the argument is weak.
Yeah, and when you look at the whole of Psalms 110, the context clearly tells you the divinity of this Adonai.
Exactly. And that's what I was pointing to. And I think, again, he's missing that.
Dative, indirect object. If
Let's go here.
it's
So let me answer it for you clearly.
Thing is, David I'm going to go to the part where he accuses me of being a
the word
heretic.
Lord is abbreviated, nomina sacra.
Here we go again.
Nomen.
Or how it's used. Here it's
I mean, he doesn't have it, therefore he's not Yahweh, he's someone else. You understand his argument?
no.
Look how he's going to say, yeah, Jesus wasn't fully God on earth.
Oh yeah.
I think it is here.
He has to look for it, but I think it's further up here.
Listen,
Give it to him, or the Lord showed them, or the Lord. Yes, but in this in the
Oh, yeah.
cases of certain passage of Jesus,
I found it.
he is the one who says he knows the thoughts. He knows their thoughts, not that it was
Well,
given
look
to him or
at
God
that.
told him.
You
Okay,
won't
so-
destroy the Unitarian's argument.
Just we're
You-
agreeing that Jesus did not know something, correct?
At certain times, depending on the context, yes, of course, definitely.
Okay, great. Would you agree that God is morally perfect and
Yes.
therefore incapable of being tempted by evil?
Wait, say it again. Say it again. That
Is
what do you mean
a
that God?
morally
Let me read your thing
perfect
here.
God capable of being tempted by evil?
God himself? No.
Okay,
Listen,
great. So according to the synoptic authors, was Jesus tempted by evil? Genuinely, without qualification?
Yes, but he was not fully God.
Jared? Yeah, but he was not fully God. I'm going to play it 2 more times. So I don't think.
See, there he stops. He doesn't let you finish your
Yeah.
sentence.
Exactly. He won't let me finish, and he won't even go on to the next one that I clarified what I meant by fully God. And I said, while
You
he
even
was
say there, wait, let me clarify what I mean.
Right.
Then you said, and he instead he goes and replays what you just said.
and he just calls me a heretic, which he's going to do right watch after this.
I'm taking him out of context.
You are taking me out
Jared?
of context. Fully God.
Okay, well, let's go back.
Thank you.
He was in
I'll
the form
take
of a
that one.
slave. Yes, he emptied him.
Okay, so
Okay, watch here.
See, cut all that out.
With your watch here. He emptied himself.
just we're agreeing that Jesus did not know something, correct?
At certain times, depending on the context, yes, of course, definitely.
Okay,
Listen,
great. Would you agree that God is morally perfect
I want
and
to-
therefore incapable of being tempted by evil?
Wait, say it again. Say it again.
Sure.
That,
Is
what do you mean
a
that God?
morally
Let me read your thing
perfect
here.
God capable of being tempted by evil?
God himself? No.
Okay, great. So according to the synoptic authors, was Jesus tempted by evil? Genuinely, without qualification?
Yes, but he was not fully God.
Thank you.
He was in
I'll
the form
take
of a
that one.
slave.
So Jesus was tempted by
so you don't think I'm misrepresenting him like that fangirl who was manifesting? Should have a conversation with him. Shut up, man. Go repent of your idolatry.
Say it again.
Yeah, that was
Say it
me,
again.
by the way.
That-
That was
He's
me
the-
commenting to have
Yeah,
a
I know.
conversation.
That was you. He's talking about right there. That was
All I said
definitely.
was great to have to see you guys have a conversation. That's all.
I know. But because you said that, you worship somebody and you're all this nonsense of even saying you make incest to photos and stuff. I mean, that's
I was like, wow, okay.
simply for making a suggestion. That's the response you give. But listen to what else he says.
is
What do you mean
a
that God?
morally
Let me read your thing
perfect
here.
God capable of being tempted by evil?
God himself? No.
Okay, great. So according to the synoptic authors, was Jesus tempted by evil? Genuinely, without qualification?
Yes, but he was not fully God.
Yeah, because he was not fully God. Okay, well, let's hear it again. Then I'll let you finish it, and then we're done. Let me go here. Okay, listen.
Okay, great. So according to the synoptic authors, was Jesus tempted by evil? Genuinely, without qualification?
Yes, but he was not fully God.
There you go.
Thank you.
Quote him?
He was in
I'll
the form
take
of a
that one.
slave.
Became a slave.
So
You got it. Okay.
Jesus was tempted by the devil, correct?
Yeah, he was in the form of a slave. Yes, he emptied himself. He laid aside all his privileges.
He laid aside all for the guy's a heretic.
See,
I'm trying to give him benefit of doubt, saying,
I'm a
Del
heretic.
Garza, you're stupid. You're not
I'm
a good
stupid.
communicator. You
I'm
suck.
like,
You're not as intelligent, bright as you think you are. You got some good stuff.
that guy.
In some areas, you've done some great stuff, expose Unitarians. You're not meant to debate. You're not that knowledgeable. You're arrogant that you think you are, and you double down, and you're going to just try to demonize people and go after them and
I
never
demonize
accept
people.
correction.
All the projection that he's doing, because that's exactly what he's doing to me. He's projecting on me exactly what he's doing, calling me stupid and this and that. I mean, he claims he's watched the debate. He didn't watch. I don't think he watched the debate personally because I explained all this even further in my debate about what I meant by fully God and the privileges, and I made it clear, taking on human form, he was not in the same 100 form as the Father and the Spirit, 100% fully God in that sense. So this is why he didn't know the day hour. He had to rely on the Father. The Father gives him authority to do all. That's the Son of Man. That is why those things are being said.
Yeah. Do you
So-
think I can share my screen quickly?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Would you want to share?
Yeah. Okay. He called you a heretic for stating by actually literally saying Philippians 2.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was referencing and quoting was Philippians 2. He emptied himself or literally laid aside his privileges, as I argued in my other debates. That's what the Greek, BDAG, that's what it's referring to. And that's how it's understood. It's not that he wasn't God, but he wasn't in the same state as the Father and the Spirit without, as that.
Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually get the Hebrew Greek linear up, interlinear. I think that's a bit better. It's quite crazy. I can't believe he he called you.
Yep. He called me a heretic. I'll give the benefit of the doubt, but he's stupid. He's arrogant. He's this. He's that. Like, man, you a lot of projecting going on because what you're saying that I'm doing to like I was doing to him or something. It's exactly what you're doing to me. Unbelievable.
Okay, is it showing? There we go. Okay, so I got the Hebrew Greek interlinear, guys. We're going to say, well, we'll start from 6. Okay, who in the form of God, substituting not something to be grasped, esteemed it to be equal with God. Okay, but himself emptied the form of taking of a servant, and in the likeness of men have been made. Okay, in appearance having been found as a man, and humbled himself, having become obedient unto death, even unto the cross.
Right. That's the whole
point. You're a heretic for saying that.
I'm a heretic for referencing that by saying he was not fully God in the sense that he was not like the Father or the Spirit. He took on a human form. That's exactly what I meant. And I even clarified it in my closing, in my one of my questions, because this question came up again in the Q&A. And I made that point that he was not fully God in the way he was in the old, as the word. He took on a form and emptied himself, laid aside his privileges, and because I say it that way, I'm a heretic. And it's like he should know better because he knows that Jesus is God and man, but the Bible never says, oh, he's only this percentage or that percentage. The Bible doesn't tell us how much of each or whatever. He took on fully flesh, humbled himself, became obedient to the Father, laid aside his privileges, as the Greek says. That's the emptying, according to BDAG. And he gave everything to the Father. It says he does his will, not his own. All authority is given to him by the Father. He calls the Father my God. All these things because he was not fully God in the sense of how he pre-existed prior. And I made that clear in my debate.
And that's why Colossians says full of Godhead inside him.
But in bodily form. Right. Because if it wasn't for the body, he would be fully God 100% as he did when he pre-existed. But because he took that, there's a second component there of the flesh. That's why that's why he can say all the things we talked about. Everything has to be relied upon the Father.
That's why the Father can give him the authority to.
Right. And that's
what he gave his authority when he became flesh.
Right. And at the resurrection, he was made Lord and God, or Lord and Messiah, because of that, what he had given up, what he had laid aside. And that's why in Philippians it even says that he's going to give in the name. Well, if he was full of God, he would already have the name. But because he laid it aside, he was given the name that above every name that every knee shall bow and every tongue confess. Yeah, and that he'd be exalted for that purpose. There's the exaltation because that's what he emptied himself. So
Hebrews 1:8.
That's why Sam, I'm not, even though Sam can be very harsh in his tone, he does that. That's fine. I'm not going to stoop to that level. I just post the verse right there underneath of James to understand that this applies to him in my mind.
Amen.
And that's what he needs to understand. What James is referring to is speaking to the believers is you need to control your tongue. I'm not here calling him stupid or all these heretics and I'm not stooping to that level because it's not necessary. I'm going to deal with what he's saying like we have been going through this. And people can judge for themselves. People can look for themselves at what he's doing and see, is this fruitful? Is it, as James says, is this worthless? Because he can't control himself. And he admits it. If anything, pray for the guy because he needs the prayers. it's just, I don't know.
It's sad. That's the thing. It's just sad.
It is.
That's all.
Um,
Because he actually really does some good things,
Yeah.
and he does have knowledge on stuff. But what he's been showing tonight, what we've been doing, I'm sorry, I cannot just stand there and say, "Oh no, it's okay." It's
Right.
not. It's not okay.
It is, and I think that even what he did to you, simply for making a suggestion of reaching out to me, which was, it was harmless. It was, hey, you bow down to him and you don't agree with me, so you build you make incest to his picture, and you're what? I mean, it's like, are you serious? I mean, that's what you have to say when you're making just a simple suggestion of, hey, why don't you talk to him or reach out to him? I mean, it's
because I think you guys can have quite a good civil conversation, If he
I-
doesn't, and it's just like, okay, let me explain to you. But like we said, he doesn't want correction.
No,
That's
he doesn't
the
want to
problem.
be discussed. If I don't agree with him, let's say even if I explain it to him and he still doesn't agree, okay, we can part ways so we don't agree. It's something's missing here. But to simply call me by the names he's calling me, because if I don't agree with him, then I'm the stupid, ignorant, arrogant, all of those projections he's making on me. It's exactly how he treats other people all the time, including yourself. And that's why I was like, he banned you because you made a suggestion of wanting to talk to me. I mean, what is wrong with him in that sense? That was harmless. I would just, respond back. So, you know what? Yeah, maybe I will. Maybe I'll reach out to him. Maybe there's a misunderstanding. Maybe there's a miscommunication, or you know what? We can maybe do that later on. But why say no? You bow to him and you bow to and make incest to his photo every day. Are you serious right now? I mean, it's like,
Yeah, it was a bit over the top.
yeah. But everything he said, I'm a heretic. I'm, even though he's getting the benefit of the doubt, I'm still a heretic. I'm stupid. I'm ignorant. I should be debating. No Christian can understand my argument. Nobody understands it, including himself. So therefore it's worthless. I mean, this is typical Sam, but to the extreme of, this was kind of more extreme. Even though he just said, oh, he does some great things, exposing Unitarians and written great books, all this praise, but to come out and say he's probably a heretic and stupid and ignorant and shouldn't be debating, bad communicator, terrible, this and that, as if he's speaking for the whole Christian faith or every person who's a Christian.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think before I close it out here?
I think it was a good discussion. I think it was something that had to be shown. So
Yeah.
And I just want to say shout out to that shirt you got on. It's really awesome.
Oh, thank you. You know what? This is one of the shirts from my new places. Yeah, Jesus, the only unique God with the verse. Did you see the shirts that I had on?
Yeah, it's really awesome stuff, guys.
Yeah.
You really should go look at that stuff.
Yeah, we really put that out. I have the mug for the other one with the shirt. It says Yahweh appeared to him. It's the same one that's on the shirt.
Hey.
And so we have we have the shirt like this. And there's actually a few different black belt theology shirts because I had people who wanted to donate, but I told them, why don't you just buy something and you get something back? Jesus, the only unique God, John 1:18. We have different shirts and all that. So yeah, I decided to do that because people were wanting to say, hey, open shop, monetize, we'd like to give, we'd like to buy. So why not? Why not do it? So I ended up getting some people together. Yeah. But other than that, listen, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you giving your input. Like I said, I know you got banned for it, but I wanted to show, I wanted people to understand where you're coming from. And also, I'm going to put your channel at the bottom also to link it. So people go on your channel, check your stuff out that you're doing. Things that we discussed. You put some of my videos out there. But yeah, you're going through the whole Unitarian thing as well, dealing with some of these people, including the other female one, the one that acts like a child.
Yeah, hello, Christian. Oh my word. That was bad. Did you see? I don't know, but that's all I really get, and that's why I think I was trying in the beginning to get to talk to Metaphysics Mike.
Yeah,
and he's exactly the same.
Uh-huh.
Unfortunately, when it comes to Unitarian, that's the fruits I get. We're talking to them.
I think she's a little worse because she's like. In a sense, she vulgarly will curse people. I've heard him curse and cuss and call people out. It's like that's the spirit you're putting out there. Okay, if you get cornered, but you act. That's such a childish mentality. Yeah, the childish mentality of when you you're a child and you give them access to something like this, they don't know how to act. And so they go off on everybody. And I've even on her making some serious mistakes on some really bad arguments. I mean, she just will go off and be vulgar. Metaphysics Mike, not so much like that, but he will call you names and say things and
See, the thing is with Metaphysics Mike, he acts like he knows what's going on.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? So it's like he'll try and make an excuse, and unfortunately his audience is too gullible to actually look up what he's saying is wrong. So they just accept it.
And he'll say, "Oh, I'm still learning. I'm gonna make mistakes," but you don't act like you do, because you act like you have an authority on your speaking, as if what you're saying is true. And when someone points out your error, you don't look at it. You simply or doubles down on it and tries to pretend, like he pretends he can read the lexicon when he can't. And then when he pointed out what he's missing, it's like, "Oh, well, I'm still learning." But but you're not correcting yourself either.
Look when he puts up the PDAG.
Yeah,
and he literally says, "Look, let me go show you. Yeah, this is not what it's saying." But if you just go like a little bit up, it literally says what he's saying. And
that's why I've made some shorts with him about him doing that with BDAG, where he'll criticize a Trinitarian. What does it mean? Let's pull up BDAG, and then he pulls up BDAG, and it says exactly what the guy said, and he sits there quietly, and then he scrolls. Yeah, and then he stops, and then he pulls it off. Well, I'm like, why didn't you not read it? Why the guy was correct. You didn't read it. It even emphasizes the pre-existence of Christ in that very BDAG text he put on there. Exactly. So this is why he will hide from it. He doesn't correct himself saying, "Oh, well, BDAG does say this," and it is. No, he'll take it off right away. And I made shorts on that saying, this is how dishonest, this is how deceptive they are, because when they're shown, even by their own mistakes that they make, they don't say anything. They won't acknowledge it. They just move on to the next thing.
And that's the problem with us here with Dr. Dustin Smith. Because I would say he's the foundation at the moment for Unitarianism, because he's like the authority everyone goes to, him and Dale Tuggy. So they will say something, and even if it's completely false, just because they are the authority in the Unitarian movement, they will accept them.
Right. Exactly.
And that's why I like the last video you brought out again about Smith pointing out, because he's got a way of bringing 20% truth and then 80% falsehood, and then they think, okay, because the 20% truth is true, everything's true. Exactly.
And it's funny because he won't. I've made videos correcting him and tagging him on it. He's not being honest with what he's, like I said. That's why I made the video saying, look, even the grammar books he's citing say specifically what he's saying isn't true. He's focusing on Elohim, but he doesn't focus on the verbs of the royal we, which doesn't exist in the Hebrew. And then I cite other scholarship showing the Elohim is not in pre-Israelite, doesn't exist the same way. But he does this. It's so dishonest to say, look, you're not. And I even have some of these people commenting on my video that are Unitarians trying to say, and they're trying to make the same type of argument that he's making. And it's like, that's not what you want to do, because the scholarly consensus is not on your side.
Scholars are insecure of majesty. It's simple as that.
Yeah, every Semitic scholar, and I've all say the same. When it comes to verbs and adjectives, the idea of royal we or majesty does not exist in biblical Hebrew. It doesn't. So so Genesis 1:26, the verb we will make is not a royal we. It cannot be a royal we. It doesn't exist, and it's not referring to angels grammatically because of how the word is used in other places. So,
and this is also one thing why I didn't really like about Dr. Miser, which I didn't agree with, because he is on the council.
Yeah.
And now the Unitarians take on that. It's like, well, you see, Dr. Michael Garza said it's the council, the heavenly council.
Right.
Which it isn't really the heavenly council. It doesn't even fit. But
all you have to do is point to the word he's using, not asa for asa. The word is used for we will make, and you cross-reference that to the other places grammatically how it's used in the same way, and it's always talking about a collective action of individuals, never a single person the way Heiser used it. And that's why I was kind of confused. Like, Heiser would know that word used all throughout Genesis and Exodus is always using that same grammatical structure as saying collectively we will do something. Exactly. Like if I told my kids we're going to clean the yard, I'm saying we all are going to clean the yard, not just me. and not you, but we are. And it's used that way all throughout the Hebrew Bible in that same grammatical way. So it can't refer to divine counsel or angels or anybody else because they're not involved in creation.
And that's why when it moves on to he created them,
Yep.
it's simply showing you that Yahweh as he, as a not the angels, not the heavenly councils they want to put it, it's Yahweh created.
Right.
That's what it's trying to substantiate there.
And that's why I tell people this is why in pre-Israelite history we have Elohim understood as the plural. It derives that way all the way to Abraham using it that way. I build that case. It's understood, and that the singularity of God, and just like nations are one nation and they speak as plural. We have one government with three co-equal branches. Okay, one government, three equal branches. Yahweh is one with three distinct persons being revealed. That is how it's used, and that even in the Old Testament, when nations are spoken of in singular pronouns, but they're collectively talking about people, it's a common language to use that way. And it's again, this is just something that's well known. So it's like you said, it's very dishonest people.
It's crazy
how they use it. But I want to thank you for coming on. Definitely I'm going to link your stuff down below, so check out his stuff. I appreciate you coming on and sharing some of the things that you're noticing also the same way, and making sure, because like I said, he kicked you out for making you just a suggestion of just me coming, of just talking, and he jumped all over you like you were some I don't know what lunatic he called you. You're some crazy I mean, it's like, really? But that's Sam. That's how he is. That's how he does things. But this time, I think he went way too far on it, because like you said, he just didn't understand the position, and that's on him, because a lot of other people did. I know that, and including yourself, who's not even at Sam's level with his people watching over 300,000. But you understood it. I have other people telling me I understand it completely. I understand what you were saying. So leave it at that. Yeah, he's supposed to be doing a part 2. I don't know what the part 2 is, to be honest with you, but
he's going to try to review what we just did.
His part 2 was to refute the Unitarian.
That should be interesting.
Yeah, he says, I'm going to do a part 2, and I'm going to go through the Unitarian arguments and destroy them. Okay, that's fine. Good. But again, why
nothing
you
to refute?
Maybe a different angle, which is fine. But we're talking about synoptic gospels in the context of the Greek and utilizing it. That was the debate.
So that would be interesting, because then I would like to see how he would argue with the synoptics for the argument of the debate without showing the Hebrew language.
And I want to see if he stays with the synoptics and not goes outside of them, because that wasn't the debate. Even though Luke did, you notice he pulls up James, he pulled up a few other passages, but Luke's telling me, stay in the synoptics. I'm like, you weren't. And then you go pull up James and other passages to build your case. But if I brought up Psalms, it's been referenced by Jesus, that I'm staying. See, that's what I'm saying. It was the hypocrisy on Luke, even, because he was using the synoptics. I mean, he was using outside the synoptics reference, to build his case. So
you even called him out for it.
Yeah, I even said, hey, you're supposed to say it. I'm like, you're following your own rules. But that's great. But anyway, I appreciate your time, brother. I'm going to let you go.
You too, man. Thank you for having me.
And we'll do this again. We got to do this again.
We should actually try a debate together on Donnie sometime.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I'll talk to Donnie and see, maybe do a 2-on-2 type of deal. Yeah, and go from there. But I'll definitely talk to him, brother.
Sure. Thanks, man.
Thanks, man. You too, brother. Have a good day. All right, so again, this was I didn't want to come at this with coming down on Sam like what he did with me. No, it was just, to me, Sam, I don't think fully understood, even though he said he did, but he didn't, but he did. Obviously he didn't, because I'm trying to show a distinction between the Hebrew and the usage of the Greek in the Synoptic Gospels, and how it would have been understood in the Hebrew of the Book of Psalms, because that's what we're using here. So, again, I don't know if this will get through, but Sam will probably, I'm not trying to correct Sam like he says correcting. I'm trying to help him understand the position that I'm in better than what he was discussing in his review. I'm just trying to help him understand better. I'm not trying to correct him like he says. He even says his own arrogance and all that, but the way he came at me from not knowing me, what I think was kind of the hitting point of why I said, why are you, in other words, why are you coming at me like this, leaving a comment like that? You don't know me. We've never talked. You couldn't have approached it differently and said, hey, brother, I saw your video and your debate. Let me tell you what I thought, blah, blah, blah. And say you said, automatically you saw I put it up there. Just stop debating. You're terrible. You're this, you're that. I mean, but anyway, that's just how it works. But listen, I want to thank everyone tuning in. Again, visit my store online. You can get these shirts, Jesus, the only unique God, with the citation of the verse. I've got Trinity verses on there from Genesis 18:1, mugs, cups, black belt theology. That helps support the ministry. People were asking about that, about supporting. I'd rather have you buy something, get something in return. Some of that money goes to the ministries. It all goes directly there. While the merchant will keep the bulk of it, but we do get some back through the ministry for selling. So look at that, like, subscribe, share, leave a comment. You agree or disagree. That's I know Sam, I don't know what he's going to say after this, but I'm not attacking him. I'm not doing what he did. I think Sam has a lot of great things on his channel. He does a lot of great arguments and debates and discussions. But in this case, I don't feel that he understood my position the way it should have been. And he didn't want to give me a chance to explain it. He just wanted to just attack at me and pretty much call me a lot of different names. But that's just Sam. So that's how he is. You're right. He's arrogant. That's how he is. Yep, he sure is. Unfortunately, that's just, and he admits it. He's not afraid to admit it. He definitely admits to everybody that he has his major problems and issues. So just pray for the guy that he stops being so arrogant in that way and divisive and name calling amongst brothers and all that, violating scripture, that we should not do that to each other as brothers in Christ. We should not, ridicule each other, call each other names, say things like that. And as far as even what I put up here in James. So James verse 1 is where I'm going at. So we all just got to pray for him. So thank you again for tuning in for Bible Answers Unfiltered and Black Belt Theology and Apologetics. My name is Dr. Al Garza. And thank you, and God bless.
Bible Answers with Dr. Al Garza.